And Chairman Eilert is absent.
So with that, let's have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, pardon? Yeah, I was getting ready to. So if you, at this time, would turn off any, or put them on vibrate, any noise-making devices, so that would be greatly appreciated. So today is National Gun Violence Awareness Week, Awareness Day, and I'm wearing orange in support of that. And so if the county manager and myself will go up to the podium, and Leanna Barkley.
Thank you, Chairman. So the board presents this proclamation in recognition of National Gun Violence Awareness Day. By wearing orange on June 3rd, Americans will raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives of gun violence victims and survivors. The Board of County Commissioners will proclaim June 3rd National Gun Violence Awareness Day and encourages all citizens to support their local community's efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor and value human lives. Leanna Barclay is here with Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. Leanna?
Thank you, Chairman Eilert in absentia and the Board of Commissioners. Yes, my name is Leanna Barkley, and I'm a member of Johnson County Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. This proclamation is an important recognition of the daily tragedies that our country faces due to gun violence. From the horrors of Buffalo and Uvalde to the intimate partner violence, gun suicides, gun homicides, and unintentional shootings, it continues on and on. We wear orange to demand a future free from gun violence. Orange symbolizes the value of each person's life, and we wear it to honor those killed and wounded by gun violence and call for an end to this crisis. Orange is the color designated for hunters, by hunters for safety, and it says, "Stop, see me. I am human. I have value. Don't shoot." National Gun Violence Awareness Day is an event that takes place on the first Friday in June and is the beginning of Wear Orange Weekend. Wear Orange is dedicated to honoring the voices of those demanding an end to gun violence. Wear Orange originated on June 2nd, 2015, what would have been Hadia Pendleton's 18th birthday. It began with her friends wanting to honor her after she was shot and killed by random gunfire. Today, Wear Orange honors Hadia and the more than 110 people shot and killed every day in the United States of America, as well as the hundreds more who are wounded. Gun violence increased when the COVID-19 pandemic struck, and those impacts continue to devastate our communities. 2021 was one of the deadliest years on record for the United States, with an estimated 20,700 people killed in gun homicides or non-suicide related gun deaths. A 6% increase since 2020. And now, in 2022, gun violence is the #1 cause of death for our children. Number one. So, we wear orange. We raise our voices on National Gun Violence Awareness Day. We remember the millions of lives taken or changed by gun violence. We demand action in their honor. Thank you for your support.
Thank you for being here, and thanks for all of those that are here with this group. And now we'd like to take a picture.
please. And after this, I want all the gang to meet me at the stairs. We'll use them as risers for the group picture, okay?
Okay. Again, I want to thank you for being here today, and I would like to make a comment that Leona is also the sister of our own deputy, Mr. Waters. So thank you for being here. And then I think he wants to get a picture over by the stairwell of the whole group. Thank you.
Move the microphone closer to her face.
Okay.
Younger sister.
So notes for the record, I'll be signing 2 agreements with the city of Olathe for a stormwater. Okay, well, I'm really messing up today, so I apologize. So let's start with public comments. Let's see, I had the gravel, I said too loud, I didn't have the microphone up. What a way to start. So let's start over. Public comments at this time.
In person, we have Ben Hobart. Ben Hobart.
Ben Hobart, Westwood Hills. As other commenters asked last week, where may I get my COVID relief slush fund zero interest $1 million loan for 15 years? It was disheartening to see Johnson County willingly layer additional public funds on top of, as I understand it, IRB funds and low-income housing tax credit subsidies for a privately owned low-income housing project. Johnson Countyans, remember come November those on the ballot who voted for this private boondoggle. In late June or sometime in July, this board will be faced with a decision. Does the board continue its strong recommendation that every eligible person get the clot shots, including those under the age of 5, once the Pfizer-BioNTech or Moderna EUAs are extended to that age group? Board members must consider, do we continue such recommendation when we are not doctors licensed to practice in Kansas, and the authorizing Kansas statutes for a county board of health do not grant us such a license? Do we brazenly disregard all the reported negative impacts of the clot shots, including myocarditis and pericarditis and the other 1,289 reported potential adverse events? Do we also disregard the limited relative, not absolute, efficacy of the clot shots, both in terms of alleged reduction of infections and limited time period for any impact whatsoever? How can we explain to the public that we are disregarding the growing body of evidence that the clot shots suppress innate immunity? How can we possibly justify exposing children to the known and unknown adverse effects of the clot shots when their exposure is limited and their innate and adaptive immune systems are superior to the clot shots' limited efficacy, particularly against new variants? How can we, in good conscience, subject an entire generation of children to an experimental gene therapy treatment, never before implemented, let alone perfected? Will we protect infants or be parrots for the CDC? When the truth is known, what will be the impact on our reputation in this community? The day of the reveal of your hearts is coming soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have Jeff Smith. Jeff Smith.
Good morning. My name is Jeff Smith, and I live at 2290 West Forest Drive in Olathe. I'm a member of the Ending Homelessness team of the Good Faith Network, as well as the year-round case manager for Project 1020. Watching this commission talk about homelessness in Johnson County, I've noticed that there are still some questions about the basic data. I'm here this morning to clarify some of the numbers in order to help eliminate confusion. Each year, HUD requires every continuum of care across the nation to conduct what is called the point in time or PIT count, which is handled by United Community Services in Johnson County. The pit count is a snapshot of a single night of homelessness in a community. The most recent pit count indicates that on a given night, and that would include tonight, 157 are homeless in Johnson County. We know from our conversations with United Community Services that the pandemic has interfered with that count. So they advise that previous year's numbers of 180 to 190 individuals on a given night are more likely accurate. In order to meet the legislative requirements of the McKinney-Vento Homelessness Assistance Act, our schools collect data about student homelessness. From that data, we know that 1,000 students are precariously housed or homeless in Johnson County in a given year. Another data point is the number of chronically homeless in Johnson County, people who are homeless for a year or longer. As the Housing Subcommittee's recent report indicates, Project 1020 is the only service available for chronically homeless. And we provided shelter to 222 separate individuals in about 95 days of operation this past winter. The numbers don't lie. Homelessness is very real in Johnson County, and the stakes are life and death. We just had one of those 2 days ago. The Good Faith Network is calling on this commission to take the lead in creating a comprehensive plan to end homelessness so that we can join the ranks of communities that have achieved functional zero in their homeless population. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have Jennifer Levinson. Jennifer Levinson.
My name is Jennifer Savner Levinson, and I reside at 15809 Oakmont Street, Overland Park, Kansas. I'm here today on behalf of the Mental Health Action Team of the Good Faith Network. This past winter, we conducted extensive research around a number of mental health topics in Johnson County, including the need for a crisis stabilization center in our county. Part of our research included taking a look at communities that have successfully addressed the same need. Douglas County has been able to meet that need and provided a center that is respectful for all that it treats. We had the opportunity to visit, and we encourage you all to do the same. The Treatment Recovery Center just opened its doors, and it offers 24/7 walk-up access for anyone in a mental health crisis. They also offer law enforcement drop-off with processing times that are quicker than taking someone in crisis to jail. They have 16 beds in their observation unit and 16 beds in their stabilization unit, and every element of it is designed to foster dignity and wellness of the clients it serves. It cost $10 million to build the center, and the project was completed in 4 years during the pandemic. Douglas County hired a director of behavioral health projects. His first job was to lead the design and implementation of the Treatment and Recovery Center. By contrast, in Johnson County, we know that a crisis center is in our master plan with a 150-bed facility to be built sometime in the next 10 years at a staggering cost of $207 million, 20 times the cost of our neighbor in Douglas County. Let's not miss this chance to do what our neighbors in Douglas County did and find a model that provides excellent stabilization care on a scale that makes sense at a price we can afford.
Thank you.
Now we have Lisa Happy. Lisa Happy.
Good morning, Lisa Huppy, 17535 Edgerton Road. Your choices impact people, your constituents, real people. You must look at the facts when making regulations regarding utility-scale solar facilities. We will continue showing up and asking you to listen, really listen, really listen. We're not politicians and we're not fighting for a political purpose. We're not anti-solar and we're not a crazy NIMBY group. I mean, we are just fighting for safe and sustainable home ownership. We are concerned about our home values and lives that we've created here. Johnson County Planning Commission has been meeting since January of 2021 to understand and begin the audacious task of creating utility-scale solar facility recommendations for you to review and approve. It has been a long and exhausting journey, to say the least, that has been tainted with lack of transparency, bias, conflicts of interest, and unlawful representation of unincorporated Johnson County. Planning Commissioner Chair Christopher Iliff and Vice Chair Randy Hutchins, who finally recused themselves in November of 2021 due to conflicts of interest, created confusion and misdirection during the critical Planning Commission process. One example of this occurred in April of 2021, where Chairman Iliff requested that Florida-based utility-scale power facility developer NextEra and their legal representation, John Peterson of Passanelli Law Firm, do actual work on the creation of Johnson County's utility-scale solar regulations. And I quote, "I think it is time for NextEra and Mr. Peterson to do some work on these and make some suggestions on the plan that has been put forth here." You ever hear of letting the fox in the hen house? I mean, really, that's what you're going to do? Planning staff, NextEra, and John Peterson of Passanelli did exactly that. And interestingly enough, that meeting resulted in the Planning Commission's recommendations being increased. They were thwarted, and the planning staff, they recommended now larger project size, coverage, reduced setbacks, and distance from the cities, all despite even the consultant's remark that a growing, thriving county such as Johnson County may not be an appropriate location for utility-scale solar facilities. This is a consultant that you all hired with our tax money for the sole purpose of advising on the draft regulations, yet you continually ignore what they said. Johnson County citizens and voters also need to know that Ed Eilert, Shirley Allenbrand, and Jeff Myers have all taken contributions from NextEra Energy's legal representation attorneys at the Passanelli Law Firm. Would you really sell your citizens out for campaign financing contributions? I hope not, and maybe you wouldn't. Maybe that doesn't sway your vote one way or the other, but the optics are bad. So think about what you're doing, and please, when you're making your decisions, make them on behalf of your citizens, not behalf of your own interests. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have Carrie Brandon. Carrie Brandon.
Good morning. I wanted to follow up on what I started talking about 2 weeks ago. I want to make the public aware because I think everyone up here is already aware of the fact that the Planning Commission during the utility scale solar regulations, per what Lisa was just talking about, has been operating with non-compliant and unlawful processes when it comes to Kansas state statutes and the county's own bylaws. So examples of this: there have been no oaths of office taken, and that's Kansas State Statute 54-106, by the planning staff or the Planning Commission board members. The citizens pointed this out to the Board of County Commissioners and the Planning Commission and legal staff. It wasn't the Board of County Commissioners that figured it out for themselves. It was the concerned citizens that pointed out that nobody's paying attention to state statutes or your own bylaws. No oaths of office were taken until we brought it up and Peg Trent made everybody take oaths of office. Conflicts of interest, which Lisa alluded to with Christopher Iliff and Randy Hutchins, blatant disregard for ex parte communication disclosures and being transparent and ethical in their chairman and vice chair positions. All this has been happening for a very long time to the unlawful ratios of unincorporated to incorporated representation on the Planning Commission has been taking place. We've been short by one. Ed Eilert assigned Terry Atwell on April 7th finally to bring it compliant. All along, this whole past year, it's been non-compliant. That's unlawful. Why is it our job to do your job? It's not good. Leadership's about
sorry, you're
vision
out of
and
time, so I'll have to
responsibility,
stop you at
not
that.
power.
Now we have Andrew Cross.
Andrew Cross, Shawnee. Climate change is hotter because we're at war with Russia. I hope you guys are remembering your responsibility to protect our infrastructure. You guys are logistics transportation hub. There have been explosions at food production. There was a train loaded with fertilizer that's been derailed. Representative David's food stamps, but that's not real food. I hope you're doing gas price adjustments. China is stopping exports, including some of the chemicals that we use for fertilizers, like DEF is another portion of transportation. I hope that you're protecting water and emergency services. As far as the concern, there is immigrant housing being handed out. I hope you realize those could be safe houses for people with intent to cause these attacks. The Supreme Court ruled that police have discretion versus protecting citizens. Right now, 500 men a day in Ukraine are dying. They were stopped at their border, they were drafted, they were given minimal training, and then they're being thrown versus tanks and artillery. You approved more guards for this facility, for your offices and your meetings. For these reasons, I have no desire to be disarmed for my own self-defense and for my family. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have Jennifer Williams. Jennifer Williams.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Williams. I'm at 21993 Moonlight Road. I want to just reiterate what the gentleman said last week. 2 minutes is really difficult to have a meaningful conversation. I feel like I get up here every week and just speak really fast at you and throw a lot of information, and we don't have the opportunity to really discuss issues that are important, and they just keep getting put off week after week as I take 2 minutes at a time to tell you what we're going through. And so it was very clear last week that 199th is still pretty political as far as putting in truck routes. It was really good to hear that 4 of you said that you are hearing us, so thank you for that. The other roads, though, that are part of this, there's no political issues about it. Edgerton themselves have said at multiple meetings. Donald Roberts said, the plan is not to route truck traffic on Gardner Road. These are all in the minutes from Edgerton. Chairman Daley said residents of unincorporated Johnson County should request their Board of County Commissioner members help the city to direct trucks correctly. Senator Molly Baumgardner said the roads in this area are not main thoroughfares. The roads are simply 2-lane roads and are designed for residential traffic and not for heavy freight traffic. We have City Administrator Beth Lynn. She said the city agrees the trucks should be utilizing the proper infrastructure. The city of Edgerton continues to ask for help with the other jurisdictions on routing this traffic. We have Edgerton's city limits end where the pavement ends and the gravel begins, and that's where Johnson County should pick up at 207th and say no trucks on 207th. It is gravel. That should not be political. Gardner Road, there's a KDOT sign that says use the interchange at Homestead, and so help them to implement it. They can't enforce it, you have to. Moonlight Road, I sent pictures on that first week where it showed a jogger beside a wide load on Moonlight. We don't need that out there. So save 199th if you must for all of these conversations that have been going on for at least a year and a half and probably longer, and let's get those restrictions on Moonlight Road, Cedar Niles, 215th, 207th, even Gardner Road at this time, and come back and deal with 199th as it's appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair, that completes our public comments.
Thank you. Notes for the record, I'll be signing 2 agreements with the City of Olathe for a stormwater system renewal project known as Street Preservation Project, WO2 and WO6. At this time, business session, could I call for a motion for the agenda? Commissioner Hanslick?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We've had a request for an additional item, and I move to approve to add an item to the action agenda of an exception to competition to purchase 15 2022 Ford E450 gravel cutaway vehicles from Masters Transportation, Inc.
Myers, second.
Can we take a roll call?
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Vice Chair Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye. At this time, let's move to the action agenda. And Ms. Hayter, could you read those?
Item number 1, consider approving the May 12th, 2022 business session minutes. All were present.
Could I get a motion for that? Commissioner Henslick?
Yes, thank you. I move to approve the May 12th, 2022 business session minutes.
Roll call, please.
Madam Chair, you may want to ask if there are any additions, corrections, or comments on those minutes before taking action.
Thank you, Mr. Ashcraft. Is there any additions or comments or corrections on those? With that, could we take a roll call?
Could I
I
ask?
need a second. I thought.
Second.
Myers, second.
Myers did.
Thank you. Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Vice Chair Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
The vote is 6-0 and it passes. Item number 2, resolution number 025-22. Consider City of Gardner application number FDP-21-06, final development plan for Panda Express Restaurant on .8 acre located southwest of East Santa Fe Street and Cedar Niles Road, within 1 mile of New Century Air Center.
Ms. Kirks, would you like to be the presenter? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, members of the County Commission. Good morning. Michelle Cricks, Johnson County Planning. And this is a City of Gardner application for a final development plan for Panda Express located southwest corner of Santa Fe Street and Cedar Niles Road in Gardner, Kansas. This application is going before the Board of County Commissioners this morning because the subject property is located within 1 mile of New Century Air Center to determine land use compatibility as required by state statute. Here's a copy of the site plan for Panda Express. The subject property is currently paved and used for parking for the Gardner Walmart development. This property is zoned a city designation of CP2 or planned general commercial. The site area is 0.8 acre and proposed development consists of a 2,391 square foot sit-down drive-through restaurant with 28 parking spaces. The proposed height of the building would be approximately 22 feet 6 inches. There are 6 LED parking lot light fixtures are proposed, which will be 22 feet in height within the project area. The light fixtures would be shielded and downcast to prevent any upward glare or trespass illumination. Signage proposed for the project would include wall signs on the facade of the building, directional signage for drive-through and menu board lighting. Minimal signage is depicted on the south facade with one 6 foot by 6 foot circular sign with the Panda Express logo and text. This would be the only illuminated sign clearly visible to incoming pilots from the south landing on the runway 36 end. The New Century Air Center Compatibility Plan identifies the flight corridors located south and north of the airport along the extended center line of runway 1836. According to that plan, the project area is within the primary flight corridor C and within the airport interest area. Uses within the primary flight corridor are intended for either commercial or industrial uses, such as general agricultural that would not be a wildlife attractant, conservation or recreational areas, public utilities, warehousing and outdoor storage, trucking or rail freight, terminal or off-street parking. The project area is located within a noise impact area. As you can see here, that's highlighted by the pink and the blue lines here. However, given the type of business and the temporary on-site nature of customers, minimizing aircraft noise would not be an issue with this use. The applicant submitted for and received the airspace obstruction determination from the Federal Aviation Administration on February 14th, 2022 for the project. The FAA did determine a no hazard to navigation for the proposed height of the building. This slide also highlights the runway protection zone in orange, which terminates just around Highway 56, or 56 Highway, excuse me, and shows the subject property is outside of that important safety area. This is a clip from the future land use map for New Century Air Center and the project area highlighted in yellow on the screen. The project area is identified as general commercial, encouraging low to medium intensity retail, office, and commercial services. The City of Gardner Planning Commission approved this application at their February 28th, 2022 meeting. Johnson County planning staff recommended approval of this item. The Airport Commission heard this item at their February 27th, 2022 meeting and recommended approval with stipulations. No one from the public commented on this project. That does conclude my presentation in this matter, and I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody on the commission have a question? Ms. O'Hara?
Thank you. Are you aware of the airplane that had to make an emergency landing behind some houses in Gardner that occurred, I believe, 3 or 4 days ago?
I just heard about it yesterday, but I'm not aware of the details.
Okay. Well, I have been talking about this for 25 years, that the development around both of our airports, Executive and New Century, that we just have not been aggressive in protecting our airports. But this complies with the policy that we have in place, so there's really nothing that the board can do at this time. And it just continues to concern me that we have more and more development around our two airports. And when is a tragedy going to occur? And then everyone's going to say, well, why did the Board of County Commissioners allow this to happen? And the reason that we are allowing this to happen is that this is the policy in place. And so my question to staff is, should we be looking at our policy, and or is it too late to change our policy? And perhaps Mr. Lepsik could address this.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Jay Leipzig, the Planning Department. The planning staff is also in the process, matter of fact, in the next 2 weeks, of bringing forward our resolution of approval for a compatibility plan for both airports, for Executive and New Century. We've been working on that for quite some time. So that is in process. Will be happening very soon in front of you. Hopefully in the next month or even less. The other thing, just as Michelle noted, this was approved by the Airport Commission. The thing that they look at most carefully is that the protection zone for the runways, and that obviously it's outside of the RPZ, so we certainly want to look at that. That is kind of a critical area of importance. Looking at it, also compatible land uses, commercial uses. The traffic is moving through those. Panda Express. So, as I said, the public did have a chance to voice their concerns with the City of Gardner. Also, the Airport Commission also reviewed that as well. So, there's several things in place there, but we are working on that compatibility plan. That'll be a major project as we move forward into this year.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that you will agree that 99% of the residents in Gardner and Johnson County have no idea what's on the agenda and what's occurring, because they are depending on the elected officials, us, and the boards that we appoint to keep them safe. And so this is in the primary flight corridor, is that correct?
I don't believe it's in the flight corridor, but it's out of the RPZ. Yes, it is within the flight corridor, but it's out of the runway protection zone.
Okay. Well, I'm just making these comments to make the public aware that the continued development around both airports is concerning, and I appreciate your work on bringing forward new recommendations.
Commissioner, the other item to note is this compatibility plan structure, and as we go through that review process, will include several public meetings as well to get public comment on that, both virtually and through the website and some other means too. So yeah, we're looking forward to those conversations.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Hanslick?
Thank you. Yeah, I have 2 questions. One for Mr. Leipzig. Sorry. I assume that all of our compatibility plans have to be approved through the FAA, and that we are beholding to those FAA guidelines. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that is correct.
So
That's part of that.
We're not just making these decisions in a vacuum.
Yes, that is part of that process. There's they're called the Form 7460, which is, it covers any traffics or any potential hazards to air traffic. And that 7460 form is always included with these proposals.
And is it also my understanding that when people move within a certain area, they are notified that they are within so much distance from the airport, so they're not unaware of that situation? Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Every airport application has a stipulation that is filed with the record with the lien on that property in perpetuity, that it is near an airport and that it's part of airport operations.
Thank you. A follow-up question, it's really a process question, perhaps for Ms. Dunham. I'm asking, because this restaurant is located in an existing retail development, why does it have to be considered by us separately? Is it not considered as part of that development? Just a process question.
And I think planning may be able to answer that more accurately, but my recollection is that this particular portion of that development, that larger development that went through this process back when it was developed, that this parcel was not approved or part of that development plan or at that time. So this was, and there may be other parcels I can't recall in that same area. So this was not part of that former, the existing development. And I looked at planning.
That would be correct. This was not part of the original approval.
Thank you for that.
Ms. Durham, since you are the legal for the airport, could you talk about the public process that we go through with the City of Gardner, the airport, and then here as well, and the public notices that go out?
Certainly. Pursuant to state law, this is a state statute that specifically provides that within 1 mile of the airport, that all, any changes in city zoning must be first approved by the Board of County Commissioners. And so what we do in that process is it goes through it first goes to the city then sends it to us, and when I say us, it goes to planning, and then planning brings it to the Airport Commission with the full staff report that you see before you, and the Airport Commission first looks at it and makes a recommendation to you, and as already stated, it's based on compatibility with airport operations, and in particular, the Airport Commission I've seen now over the years really focuses on safety and lights and noise and wildlife, those kinds of things, the navigation, and we have a number of people on the Airport Commission with a lot of experience in those areas. So, and then it comes to you it comes with an airport and staff recommendation.
Thank you for that. I just wanted to point out so that people knew that there was public notices and all those processed. Please make sure you check. Commissioner Ashcraft?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Kirks, thank you for your presentation. Good job. Commissioner Hanslick almost asked the question that I was wondering about, and could you tell us what the current use of that particular parcel is? Is there a structure there, or is it parking or open space? And then you outlined by inference a number of stipulations, but were there any other stipulations that we should be aware of?
So currently, this pad site is used for spillover parking from the Gardner Walmart. It is paved. Directly east of that is a small Burger King drive-through restaurant. So there's other retail uses within that parking lot that has been transformed. There are other stipulations that were included. I'm pulling those up real quick. Apologies. So the site plan the site must be developed in accordance with the site plan attached to the staff report and will be attached to the resolution should this project be recommended or approved today by the board. They do have to file the affidavit of interest to notify that there is an airport in the vicinity. And we also included a stipulation to lighting to ensure that they are downcast, that the lights are shielded to prevent any interference with pilot navigation as they come into or out of the airport.
Very good. You had mentioned that anything on height, such as antennas or transmission devices?
No, any development on that site, and this will include any construction equipment, they will be required to fill out a form with the FAA and get their 7460 approval. That 7460, the FAA takes a look at it to ensure that there is no airspace obstruction, and that is for any permanent structure or temporary structure. So if there's a crane needed on site, they need to get that approved as well.
Thank you.
There are no other questions at this time. I would like to open it for a public meeting. Would anyone like to speak? With that, I'll close the public meeting, and can I have a motion? Commissioner Hanslick?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I move to adopt resolution number 025-22, approving a City of Gardner final development plan application for Panda Express Restaurant on 0.8 acres for the reasons and subject to the stipulations set forth in the resolution.
Do I hear a second?
Commissioner Bath, second.
Thank you, and could you call roll?
Commissioner Fast,
Aye.
Commissioner Myers,
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick,
Hanslick, yes.
Commissioner Ashcraft,
Yes.
Vice Chair Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
That passed 6-0.
Thank you. Move to the next.
Item number 3, resolution number 024-22 and resolution number 032-22. Application numbers SW21-174-REZGA and SW21-175-PP/FP-GA. Plat exception 06-02-2022. Consider a request from Allenbrand Drews and Associates Incorporated, applicant, and Edwin and Judy Colson landowners to rezone approximately 5,512.2 square feet of property from RUR to PRU-1B, preliminary and final plat, which shall serve as the preliminary and final development plans, and one waiver for one residential lot to be known as Colson Place, located at 15645 Lake Road, 4th Street.
And notes for the record, Allenbrand Drews, my family no longer owns that. My uncle was a primary owner and sold it numerous years ago. So I just wanted to make that public, so I have no interest. Go ahead, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Allenbrand, members of the Commission, Michelle Cricks, Johnson County Planning. This is a request for approval for a rezoning of approximately 5,500 square feet of land from rural district to planned residential urban single-family 1B district, or the PRU-1B, a preliminary plat and final plat for one 0.4 acre residential lot located up at Gardner Lake. As you can see here on the vicinity map in front of you, this property is located on the west side of Gardner Lake, north of the city of Gardner. Here is an aerial of the subject property. The lot is currently vacant, although at one time a single-family home was present. In 2020, the landowners, the Colsons, purchased 2 lots along Gardner West Road with the intent to raise the existing aging house on site and construct a new home. So the site that they originally purchased were these 2 pieces here that are kind of interlocked like a puzzle. This home was demolished in the spring of 2021. In October of 2021, the landowners acquired 4,132.2 square feet of land right here along the lake from the city of Gardner. And most recently, the landowners have been in discussion with the city to purchase an additional 1,380 square feet of land along Gardner West Road to further increase the size of the lot. As of to date, the landowners own 3 of the 4 parcels of this request, and the transfer of this piece here along Gardner Road is pending. Here is the surrounding zoning, and it might be a little difficult to see just with the color resolution, but all these lots just on the west side of Gardner Road in the light yellow, these are all have structures, have homes on them, and they are all zoned PRUMB. There's a few pieces here along the lake that are zoned RUR, and then this is within the city of Gardner, zoned R1, and this is the site of the Gardner golf course. The 5,521.2 square feet of land along the lake and the street currently does not have a zoning designation. Per the zoning regulations, if land does not have a zoning designation, and that is because it was owned by the city of Gardner, the rural zoning designation would be a default classification. The lakefront parcel here and the strip of land along Gardner Road are city-owned and not zoned, and therefore would carry the rural zoning designation until an amendment to the zoning map is requested. The requested zoning to the PRU 1B, which is consistent with these two lots here, that was an interlocking puzzle piece, would be consistent with other developed lots around the lake. And this is just a quick slide here of the preliminary plat. And here's the final plat, which does comply with all the required and subdivision regulations, with exception to the plat exception and the infrastructure waiver requested by the applicant. Planning staff did recommend approval of this item. The Southwest Consolidated Zoning Board heard this project at the April 27th, 2022 hearing and recommended approval of the rezoning, preliminary plat, final plat, the plat exception, and infrastructure waiver with stipulations, and no one from the public spoke on this item. And with that, I am available for questions.
Does any commissioner have any questions? With that, I'll open the public meeting to open. Does anyone here have any comments or questions? With that, I'll close the public meeting and looking for a motion. Ms. Hanslick?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I've been advised there are actually 3 motions for this item, and I'm glad to make those each at one time, and I understand that there needs to be a separate roll call vote on each of those. So I will start with the first motion. I move to adopt resolution number 024-22, which approves a request to rezone 5,512.2 square feet of property from RUR Rural District to PRU 1B Planned Residential Urban Single Family 1B zoning for the reasons set forth in the resolution.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Fast, second.
Thank you. Could you do a roll call?
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Vice Chair Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye. With that, it's approved. We move to the next agenda item.
Excuse me, we have
I'm
2
sorry.
more motions.
I
Thank
am
you.
sorry. Motion number 2.
Yes. I move to adopt resolution number 032-22, which approves preliminary plat and final plat for one 0.4 acre residential lot to be known as Colson Place for the reasons and subject to the stipulations set forth in the resolution.
Do I hear a second?
Myers, second.
Could you do roll call?
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Vice Chair Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye. Your next motion. Do
That
I-
one passed 6-0.
Thank you.
And the third and final motion on this item is I move to approve plat exception authorization number 6-02-22 for the reasons recommended by the Southwest Consolidated Zoning Board.
Do I hear a second?
Myers, second.
Could you take roll call, please?
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Vice Chair Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
That one passes 6-0.
Well, now we'll move along to the next one. Are you going to
Item-
stay up here the whole time?
No, the other Michelle in the planning department's heading up for the next one.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Item number 4, resolution number 028-22 and resolution number 029-22, application numbers SW22-196-REZGA and SW22-197-PP/FPGA. Consider a request from Harold Phelps of Phelps Engineering, applicant, on behalf of Mark and Susan Ruse, landowners, for a rezoning from PRU 1B and RUR to PRU 1B, preliminary and final plat, which shall serve as the preliminary and final development plans, and one waiver for a single residential lot to be known as Ruse Estates, located at 15790 Gardner East Road, Gardner Township.
Oh, I'm writing notes. Ms. Leninger, I've got two people talking. Does any commissioner have any questions here? Oh, I'm sorry. Could you do the presentation first?
Yes. Good morning, Michelle Leiniger, planning staff. This will look very similar to the item you just looked at. Again, this is a rezoning preliminary final plat for the subject property, which is outlined in blue on your screen. It's just north of 159th Street and along East Gardner Road. This is on the east side of the lake this time. The intent is for the two lots and one parcel to be combined for a single-family home to be constructed. This is a close-up of the property, which includes two platted lots, which are in the middle, and then one parcel, which actually flanks the platted lots on either side. So there's some property along Gardner East Road, and then it's connected to the parcel along the lake. This is a zoning map of the area. The green is the RUR, and the yellow is the PRU 1B. The two platted lots are zoned PRU 1B, and the parcels around the parcel around the lots is zoned RUR. The RUR parcel is right of way and lakefront property the owners purchased from the city of Gardner. This property is unzoned when owned by the city. Once it becomes owned by a private citizen, the zoning reverts to that RUR zoning district. The properties need to be consistent zoning to be combined. The zoning is consistent with the surrounding properties. As you can see, properties to the south of the subject property are zoned the PRU 1B and with a few of the RUR parcels along the lake. Here's the proposed final plat. The subdivision regulations were met with this plat. There's a request for a minimum infrastructure to have one road constructed to at least the type B collector standards. Gardner East Road is not built to that standards, and really it doesn't make sense to expand that road just in one little piece. Those roads around Gardner Lake tend to be a little more narrow, and widening one piece and then narrowing it back down can be more of a hazard than a help at that point. Johnson County Public Works and planning staff both support this waiver. At the April 27th Southwest Zoning Board meeting, the board recommended approval of the rezoning preliminary and final plats and the infrastructure waiver subject to stipulations as recommended by staff. No members of the public spoke regarding this item. And with the last one, this one has two separate motions. And I can answer any questions. The applicant and the property owners are here if you do have any questions for them.
At this time, do we have any questions from the commissioner? Commissioner O'Hara?
Yes, thank you. I believe that this application for a waiver it really highlights the issues of the roads in rural part of Johnson County, and I know that this is around Gardner Lake. But it really highlights the need that we have to be very cognizant that these secondary roads, 199th is a prime example, 191st, 207th, 215th. These roads do not have shoulders consistently, and they are not built to accommodate truck traffic, and that we really need to be focused on that. And this just highlights, again, the need for our immediate attention to those issues. So that's all the comments that I have. Thank you.
Any other comments? Mr. Ashcraft?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Building on Commissioner O'Hare's question, the desire not to widen the road, the question I had was, are the shoulders adequate in terms of safety for the residential traffic that I'm assuming primarily uses that road? Has there been a review of that, and has Mr. Pedic signed off on that?
Public Works is always part of our process, so they provide comments on all of our applications, and in meeting with Public Works staff, this road is technically a collector street, though not used as a collector street. Shoulders are hit and miss, right-of-ways hit and miss along this area. The proposal for the applicant, they will have enough room to adequately park off the road. Public Works staff didn't have any issue with not including those additional width and right-of-way, so they're comfortable with that waiver to not improve that street.
Thank you.
Is Mr. Pedic here by any chance?
Scott, do you know? No, I don't think he's available.
Would the applicant like to make any comments?
He's on Zoom? Okay, we'll grab him.
Dick, you mean, or the applicant?
Did the applicant want to make any comments?
He had no comments.
Okay, great. All right, well, I just thought maybe Mr. Pedic could address the roads.
I believe he's here, and Scott's checking. I don't know if you want to wait or move on.
We'll just move along. Go, Mrs. Hanslick.
Yes, I just wanted to point out in the briefing sheet, there is an explanation of the road situation. It does say the applicant has requested a waiver for the following reasons. Number one, Gardner East Road is a residential street with a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit and has limited use. And two, improving Gardner East Road by widening and adding shoulders along only the applicant's frontage would not improve the overall safety of the street, and the brief change in road width and shoulders would likely be confusing to motorists. And both county planning, public works staff, and the Southwest Zoning Board support that proposed waiver.
Thank you, Commissioner Hanslick. Would you like to add anything, Mr. Pedic?
Good morning, Brian Pedic. I'm not sure what I'm adding to, so I'll say no.
Well, I think Commissioner Hanslick covered you, so I think we're good. Thank you.
One follow-on, Madam Chair. Mr. Pedic, don't leave
Mr.
too quickly, please. The question I raised was if there were adequate shoulders on this road, and I'm a little confused if this is designated as a collector or residential. Traffic volumes, I'm suspecting, are pretty low. Speed limit is fairly moderate, but given straightaways, 30 miles an hour can often turn into something a little quicker than that. So we've had issues with shoulder drop-off problems in other locations. Are you satisfied that we do not have that concern here? That's my primary interest.
So I'm satisfied our staff, excuse me, looked at this. I'm not sure what we're discussing. And if they made a recommendation, I'm confident in it.
Maybe you could address the, what you have in place right now, working with the city of Gardner, the outlining cities, and continue. I know you speak every week to this, and I apologize, but you have worked tirelessly with your staff, meeting with other members of this committee that you meet, and talk about how you come to the conclusion of speed limits, traffic routes. If you could just briefly explain that, I think that might help the public.
Is this a separate from this item?
Her question is probably separate from the item. The question, Mr. Pedic, I'm sorry you're at a disadvantage, but we were looking at a property that is being consolidated into one parcel, and the question was a road piece that affronts this property as to whether or not to widen it or not widen it. The recommendation is not to widen it. And my only question was, are there adequate shoulders? Because we've had some problems elsewhere in the county when people exceed speed limits and wheels inadvertently hit the corners. So I was wondering if you had looked at that and you were satisfied with the current or the proposed arrangement. And if you are, that's great.
So I'm seeing this as by Gardner Lake, and I know this is a unique issue. I'm just not going to be able to give you my personal look at it. I am, again, confident that our staff looked at it, and their recommendations on it are very solid.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Hara?
Thank you. According to the briefing sheet, there are no shoulders. And this is why they're coming in to ask for a waiver. And that's why I brought up the fact that this is not an isolated issue, and that I've been talking about inappropriate traffic on these roads that have no shoulders and have drop-off ditches. And it's not just Gardner Road. This is a little section of Gardner Road that's around the lake. And I have no opposition to this, but again, it just highlights the overall problem within the unincorporated area that we are having conflicts with huge developments of warehouses, which is creating a lot of unwelcome traffic on our secondary roads.
Commissioner Hanslick?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a question for Ms. Leininger. In the discussions in the Planning Department and on the Southwest Consolidated Zoning Board, were there any concerns about truck traffic on this Gardner East Road?
There were not. Gardner East Road is kind of one of those off the beaten path. If you probably wouldn't go on it intentionally unless you knew where it was and you knew where it ended up. So staff, both Public Works and planning staff, were comfortable with that waiver, knowing that really the street acted more like a local street, even though it's classified as a collector.
Thank you.
Any more questions? With that, I'm going to open it up to the public if there's any comments or questions regarding this. With that, I'll close the meeting and ask for a motion. Commissioner Hanslick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Like the previous item, this one also requires two separate motions, one regarding the rezoning and the second one regarding the waiver for the Type B collector street. So I'll start with the first motion. I move to adopt resolution number 028-22, which approves a rezoning from PRU 1B and RUR districts to PRU 1B district for the reasons set forth in the resolution.
Could I have a second?
Myers, second.
Myers, second. With that, could we take a call?
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
And Vice Chair Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
With that, it passes 6-0.
And Madam Chair, if I might, the second motion on this item, I move to adopt resolution number 029-22, which approves a preliminary and final plat which shall serve as the preliminary and final development plans, and one waiver for a Type B collector street to provide access to the lot for a single lot subdivision to be known as Ruse Estates for the reasons and subject to the stipulations set forth in the resolution.
Do I have a second?
Myers, second.
Commissioner Myers made the second, so could we take a roll call, please?
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
And Vice Chair Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
Therefore, it passed 6-0.
Thank you. Can we move to the next one?
Item number 5, resolution number 027-22, application number SW22-193-FDPGA. Consider request from Nick Ewing, Sullivan Palmer Architects, on behalf of J.R. Dotson, applicant, Johnson County Airport landowner, requesting a revised final development plan for a parking stall number reduction waiver on 2.56 acres on property zoned PEC-3, Planned Research, Development, and Light Industrial Park District, located at 270 Gardner Drive in Section 18, Township 14, Range 23.
Ms. Liniger?
Morning. Michelle Leiniger, planning staff. This application is for a revised final development plan to review changes to the proposed parking lot. As you can see in the aerial, the subject property is outlined in blue. It's between New Century Parkway and the airfields. The applicant is proposing revisions to the final development plan that was approved in October 2021. The plan was for construction of a 30,000 square foot hangar and 22 parking stall parking lot. The site is currently under construction. The revised final development is required to allow for a waiver from the minimum parking requirement to allow for 11 parking stalls instead of the 22. This is pretty straightforward changes to the development plan. As you can see, the picture on the left outlined in green shows parking stalls. The one at the right shows no parking stalls. The area will still be paved. They just won't be striped. And this is really due to circulation on site. There is a overhead door proposed on the southern corner of that building, and maneuverability into that with the parking stalls in that location turns out isn't going to work. So they don't necessarily need the parking. This is really an accessory building for the business that's to the north. So they have crossover parking between the two parcels. Again, this is a garage for airplanes, so there would be really limited parking necessary. The waiver for this is to allow, again, for 11 parking spots. And at the April 27th Southwest Zoning Board meeting, the board recommended approval of the revised final development plan, subject to stipulations as recommended by staff. No members of the public spoke regarding this item. I can answer any questions, and the applicant is available on Zoom.
Would the applicant like to make any comments?
1 second. Nicholas Ewing, would you like to make any comments?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. No, I'm okay with Michelle's summary of our proposed revisions.
Thank you, Mr. Ewing. Does any of the commissioners have any? Commissioner Hanslick.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I thought that the briefing sheet was very well written and very explanatory. pretty straightforward request, so thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions from the commission? With that, I'd like to open it up to the public, if there's any comments or questions. With that, I will ask for a motion. Commissioner Hanslick. Oh, Commissioner Myers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to adopt Resolution 027-22, which approves a revised final development plan for a parking stall number reduction waiver for the reasons and subject to the stipulations set forth within the resolution.
Could I have a second?
Hanslick, second.
Commissioner Myers made the first, Commissioner Hanslick made the second, and with that, could I call roll call?
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
And Vice Chair Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
That passes 6-0.
Thank you. Moving to item number 10.
Actually, it's item number 6, I believe.
Item number 6, consider approving the Medical Examiner's Office, MEO, to provide services to outside counties as detailed in the previously approved fee schedule for providing such services under the terms and conditions described in the form Autopsy Service Agreement, and ratify the MEO agreement with Reno County for autopsy services.
Good morning, Vice Chair, Commissioners. Joe Connor, Assistant County Manager. I'm here today also with our medical examiner, Dr. Peterson, for any detailed questions you may have. So just by way of just a brief background, when the medical examiner's office was contemplated, the idea of contracting out with other counties for services was part of that thought process. So when we came before you in September with the fee schedule, we also had mentioned that there was a county in Kansas that was coming forward with wanting to be the first one. That was Reno County, Kansas. And so that has actually taken place. And so in anticipation of future counties coming forward, I know Dr. Peterson has had inquiries from at least one other county nearby, if not two, for us to provide those autopsy services. We were presenting a blanket or kind of a standard MOU form we could use for all of the counties. It would be based on the approved fee schedule, which is something that you would continue to approve if changes are made. We anticipate reviewing the fee schedule annually to make sure that we are at the appropriate cost levels, most competitive in recovering our costs. So that would still become before you as we make changes to it. And since it is a kind of a standard agreement based on the fee schedule, we are also asking in the suggested motion to authorize the county manager to approve such MOUs going forward. Authorize the county manager's office to do those moving forward because the fee schedule is subject to your review moving forward. So that I'd take any questions, or if you have any questions for Dr. Peterson.
Does any of the commissioners have a question or concerns? Mr. Ashcraft, Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Connor, could you elaborate a little bit on what you said about the fee schedules being most competitive? I thought we were pursuing a full cost recovery on those services.
Well, when we had the cost study presented to you back last September, there was the full costs were included in that report. But with the cost of the building that were already paid for, and there were some things that we took out of those costs, and we wanted to be competitive.
So fixed costs were removed. You're talking about operational costs being covered?
Right.
Okay. And are the two items together related to the same topic, or are they separate topics?
Kind of related. I would say that the second one is more about the overall activities of the medical examiner's office, not just the Reno County additional work.
Okay. You made reference to this, Mr. Connor, and I appreciate you doing so. I was wondering if you or Dr. Peterson could remind us of the strategic planning effort that her office has gone through, and what the short-term and long-term expectations are for the office.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Peterson, medical examiner. So the short-term strategic plan that is already underway is obviously to provide death investigation for Johnson County and obtain NAME accreditation, National Association of Medical Examiners. Long-term strategic plan is to provide our services to other counties, either in Kansas and also possibly Missouri, that come to us and request the services.
Will you be marketing this effort, or will it just be professional word of mouth, for lack of a better term?
It is currently professional word of mouth, and that is sufficient for me.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Commissioner Fast.
Yeah, I mean, autopsy services, as you know, are, it's needed greatly in our metro area. I mean, there's only one facility in KCK. Families really have nowhere to go. Often they can't get that service. But like as Commissioner Ashcraft talked about, I'm real concerned about the cost recovery. I think we need to have, you know, fiscal accountability on this service. And I mean, it's not just a service that we're providing the whole state, but that we need to meet our costs. And you're saying you're not doing full cost recovery because there's such a dire need. People are going to use us. I don't see Johnson County taxpayers providing, that's not our goal, to provide this service for the whole metro region, which there's a dire need for this.
Correct. You're right. There is a need for good quality autopsy service, absolutely. With regard to the fees, as Mr. Connor said, we will be reevaluating annually to ensure that we are adjusting for increased costs both in salaries as well as in supplies, et cetera. The costs that were taken out were the capital costs that had already been paid for and already been accounted for. So we were not charging the outside counties yet again for those costs.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Thank you. Yes, my question is, isn't this a little premature for us to vote on when we don't have all the costs, how those costs are going to be recaptured so that the burden does not fall on our county residents? And also, as demand increases, are we going to be, do we have adequate space, or are you going to be coming back and saying because of the use of this facility, even though it's outside of our own county, that we're going to need to have capital improvement on this? Have we really thought this through deeply enough? Because I agree with Commissioner Fast that these costs should not be put on the shoulders of our residents for providing this service to other communities.
Well, again, I'll just go back to when this cost study was presented previously. It was made clear to the board this was not a full cost recovery proposal. It got the majority of the cost, but to be fair, we didn't include the capital for the building and things that were already paid for. So there's no cost to us on that. So that was I thought made pretty clear. And again, we want to try to remain competitive and try to provide those services for folks while keep taking care of Johnson County first. I mean, that's first and foremost in the whole thought process. Is it was voted on by our residents to take care of the Johnson County residents first and foremost. So I think what Dr. Peterson talked about her evaluation process, but I don't think there's any intention of taking on more work that's going to be to the detriment of the Johnson County residents.
So the current facility can accommodate how much more use? We're going to add a staff member, correct?
Correct. We are going to, in the next item, is adding an autopsy technician. But with regard to physical space and capital improvement, the building is sufficient to, for goodness, another twice as much autopsies. And these, at least Reno County, the other counties that have approached have a much, much smaller caseload than Johnson County itself. And so their addition
is, Reno County, for example, is about a third or less of what I do already for Johnson County. Our cooler space, we have capacity for 80 individuals. Our average census in our cooler is less than 10. We have a lot of capacity, physically speaking, within the building.
So you're saying that taking out the capital improvement costs, which we already have, that there will be no impact on the taxpayers of Johnson County. Is that correct?
Can I add to this? And I may ask either Scott or Joe Waters to weigh in also. But when the sales tax was passed for this building, it was intended that to be able to expand services. So it was built with some extra capacity for that purpose. So that was paid for by the sales tax. And so I don't know if Scott or Joe want to add to that, but that's part of the expectation when it was built.
Did it state that we were going to be providing services for outside of Johnson County?
I will ask Joe that question.
This is what I get for being one of the longer-term folks here. Yes, it was anticipated. It was proposed at the size and the capacity that was constructed, so that with an understanding and a planned intention to provide services beyond Johnson County's needs. Ultimately, one day, if our needs grow to where those other contracted work can't be done, then that gets pushed out of the facility. But it was built with the thought that we would have more capacity than we need now. We would fill that with contract work in the interim until such time, hopefully, we never fully need it for county.
And specifically, it was stated that the expansion would be to provide services outside of the county?
Yes, that the facility as planned and constructed would have the capacity and the intent to contract with services outside of Johnson County.
Thank you, Mr. Waters. Is there any more questions, any commissioners? Commissioner Fass?
Yeah, I met with our medical examiner, had a tour. I really encourage everyone to take a tour. I worked with the Kansas City Autopsy Center, and so I know how needed this service is. I just still think it's a very costly service, and that we need to be, the ultimate highest value for our tax dollar and try to recoup these costs. And I know you have the strategic plan, but I still think that should be our goal, to be cost neutral. And is that not a goal?
I think that's certainly a goal to do it. I don't think we never want to lose money on anything, and that's not our intention here. I just think that trying to balance the needs of trying to contract for the size of facility we have and make sure that we doesn't affect us locally. I think that's the balance that we are achieving.
So basically, you're covering the costs.
And in this case, I think I can safely say, and then some, with the Reno County agreement.
Commissioner Myers.
Thank you, Chair. That was good. Maybe it'll be better understood if you could explain the benefits of us having this expanded contracted services.
The benefits to Johnson County?
Yes.
The benefits to Johnson County include some recuperation of salaries, because the time of my staff will be paid regardless, and now we get some recoupment of their time, and so there is that benefit to Johnson County. The other benefit is not necessarily tangible, but we are looked at as a high-quality death investigation, high-quality medical examiner's office, and many people from around the state rely on us for information, education, et cetera.
Those were two important pieces of information I think we needed to hear.
I agree. Thank you. Commissioner Hanslick?
Yes, I wanted to just ask to clarify. I think what I'm hearing is the building is paid for through the public safety sales tax. So we're not including the cost of the facility in this fee because the building's already paid for. We don't need to have reimbursement for that. But all the other costs associated with doing additional work for other counties is included in the amount, the fee that will be charged to the other counties. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner O'Hara?
Thank you. But the cost of that construction was borne by the taxpayers. And if we're going to provide this services, it seems like we are renting this space basically to other municipalities, other governing entities. And so it seems like that we should have some compensation because they are actually using our facilities. I would really, I'm just not comfortable with the assurances that this is not going to be burdening our taxpayers, that we will be, I'm just not comfortable with the idea and the information that's been provided that it's actually going to be revenue neutral. Is there any way that we could put this off for a couple of weeks and you could present us a little more assurance and come up with a plan that this is actually going to be cost neutral? Because I'm not getting that feeling that it's like everyone is dancing around, well, maybe that's our plan, it's a goal, and I don't want to vote on a goal. I want to vote on hard facts.
Well, I mean, this particular item just talks about the ability for us to contract with other counties. In the next item, you'll see where we estimate revenue from the Reno County agreement at $190,000 a year. Even if we didn't add the additional person, that's $190,000 that we didn't have today. So that's more money for us. So again, I mean, we can certainly provide you more information, but the simple math is contracting with these counties brings in revenue that we don't have today with the same number of staff.
Yes, but we're adding staff to accommodate.
That's a separate request, and that's really tied more to the busyness of the medical examiner's office, period, as well as adding another county on top of it. Commissioner Ashcraft?
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an interesting discussion, and it has morphed from the original interest in this briefing sheet, or both these briefing sheets, but I think it's fair discussion. I'm supportive of both these efforts within the context of those efforts. These efforts do not get into the greater questions. Mr. Connors and Mr. Waters, I think, attempted to point out that when the medical examiner's facility was envisioned in the Public Safety Sales Tax 3, it was seen as a long-term investment. I don't know if 75 years was specifically stated, but it was considered long-term because it was something that we had not had before. We had contracted those services, inferior services, just to acknowledge the superior work that we are doing. And excess capacity was built in because the thought process was long-term, the cost-benefit cycle was better to build it in now rather than to try to piece it together over 10, 20, 30 years. And while, as an aside note, I had some objections about the sales tax, the plan for the facility made sense. And one of the things that was requested by a previous commission was that the medical examiner come up with a strategic plan to not only cover as much of the operating cost as possible, but more. And I think both of these fit in with those strategic objectives. Do they do it fully? Probably not. And I think that will develop and mature over time as we get our sea legs in terms of managing this operation long term. Both of these items seem to be in line with that. Particularly, I have looked at their strategic plan, and it fits in line, and I am supportive of that, and I believe, though, that as we go forward, and staff has indicated that they will periodically look at that fee schedule, because as demand increases, quite honestly, pricing can increase, and not only will you cover operating costs, you will then contribute to those fixed costs or sunk costs. And I think that's a long-term marketing effort. And I respect Dr. Peterson not wanting to market too quickly and overpromise, and I understand that, but I think you're on the right track. But like Commissioner O'Hare, I wish it was all done, it was in place. But saying that, I am supportive.
Commissioner Hanslick?
Yes, I just wanted to point out that the medical examiner's office was funded by a sales tax, not property tax. So that sales tax is paid by residents of Johnson County, but also by people who come into our county to shop. So it's not a property tax implication.
Are you saying they're dying to pay taxes here?
Oh, no. Oh. Do we have any comments from the public at this time?
That's pretty good.
With no comments,
Yes, you do. If you're going to speak, you need to come to the podium, please.
thank you. And state your name and address. My name is Maria Holiday, 7647 Hemlock, Overland Park. So I just have a quick question looking at it. The employees that are being added, you indicated that it was separate and they were being added as a need that we have right now. So I'm just curious, if it's a need we have right now, what will happen when we take in additional, and a contract, if it pays for itself in the fees, great, but are we going to have to hire more people to accommodate these contracts then, if we need these people now for what we have now? Mr. Connor, thank you.
Just to clarify, this item is not asking for the additional person. It's asking for the MOU approval. But I will say that anytime we have a contract for service, you've got to look at if you add work, do you need more people to do it? In this case, for the next item, that's part of the equation. Into the future, we'll have to evaluate, do we want to take on another county if it's going to require more people, and does it make sense to do that, both financial and operationally? So the answer is it would be evaluated. It's not a guaranteed, every time you add a county, you have to add a person. That's not the thought process.
Do you have a question?
I'm prepared to make a motion when the time's ready.
Ms. Bass is going to make the motion. Thank you.
I move to authorize the Johnson County Medical Examiner's Office to provide autopsy services to other counties as previously authorized in conjunction with the approved fee MEO agreement with Reno County for autopsy services, and to authorize the county manager to authorize future MEO service agreements utilizing the fee schedule and form autopsy service agreement, and to take such actions as may be necessary to implement the agreement.
Do I have a second?
Hanslick, second.
Excuse me, legal.
Excuse me, Commissioner, I think in the motion you skipped a line,
Okay.
and that's the line that says, schedule on the terms and conditions described in the form autopsy service agreement to ratify the MEO agreement. Clerk, is that how you read that also?
Yes.
Okay.
You want me to read it again?
Please.
To ratify the MEO, you want to start me? I don't need to start for all over. To ratify the MEO agreement with Reno County for autopsy services, and to authorize the county manager. So I missed that phrase.
I think you should start from the beginning.
Okay. Okay, I move to authorize the Johnson County Medical Examiner's Office to provide autopsy services to other counties as previously authorized in conjunction with the approved fee schedule on the terms and conditions described in the form autopsy service agreement, to ratify the MEO agreement with Reno County for autopsy services, and to authorize the county manager to authorize future MEO service agreements utilizing the fee schedule and form autopsy service agreement, and to take such actions as may be necessary to implement the agreement.
Hanslick, second.
We have a first by Commissioner Fass and a second by Commissioner Hanslick. Could we take a roll? Commissioner O'Hara?
Yes. I would like to make an amendment to this motion. And that is that costs will hold Johnson County residents harmless, and that all additional cost above that will be recouped by increase of fees.
If you're looking to me for a comment, or, I mean, we have a fee schedule, and we're asking for approval for a kind of a blanket MOU to move forward, so everybody knows what the fees are when they're paid. So
Correct, but as this is a new program, and if it does not go as planned, I think that staff needs to have the direction that fees will be increased to cover those costs so that our county residents will be held harmless.
Ms. Durham, can you make a comment, please?
There's a motion to amend. Is there a second?
Well, I will second to facilitate discussion.
So could you take a vote, please?
Well, let's discuss. I want to make sure I understand Commissioner O'Hara's intent. Her intent is to hold Johnson County residents harmless if costs escalate and revenues do not match those costs. Is that correct, Commissioner?
That is correct.
Okay, I mean, I think that's the intent of the original motion, so I don't see a contradiction there.
Again, I stated earlier that we would do an annual review of the fee schedule to make sure we are getting the appropriate costs, to make sure that we are made whole, and certainly not go negative.
I would say that that is the intent on the operational side.
Yes, yeah, no.
Commissioner Myers?
Well, that was going to be my comment. I don't know that there's a need for the amendment. I think
Well, if it's
included in the process of the plan that's being presented and the item that's being presented. So I don't know that the amendment has additional protection for residents that they're already going to provide.
So could I get a clarification from legal? Do we need to vote on that?
You have a motion to amend and a second to that motion to amend. So first you need to yes, you need to take a vote on that amendment motion.
On the amendment motion, so.
Then you'll be back with the original motion.
Okay, Commissioner O'Hara, could you?
Thank you. So there is no, obviously, if this is the intent and the amendment is part of the motion, this just reiterates that Johnson County residents will be held harmless, and if it's not in the motion, yes, in the briefing sheet and your conversations, it states that that is the goal, but by making it part of the motion, it's not a goal, it's a requirement. And I think that that's an important differentiation.
So Ms. O'Hara, is that your motion?
I already made it, that the cost on this project will hold Johnson County residents harmless, and all additional costs will be recouped by increasing fees.
Second. I've already seconded, but this.
Commissioner Hanslick?
Yes, I appreciate Commissioner O'Hara's intent, and I think everyone is in agreement that we want to recoup all the costs. My question, and I think this is for Mr. Connor, will the amendment make it difficult to move forward with this agreement, these agreements, or in any way impact the plans to move forward?
I mean, as long as there's the understanding that the fee schedule will be reviewed once a year, and you will approve that or not. And that's the point where the fees would change. We don't anticipate changing fees, every quarter or every month or whatever. We just do it on an annual basis. And if it requires a change, it'll be brought forward to you.
I'm wondering if perhaps instead of the amendment that's on the floor is something to the extent where with the BOCC will review the fee schedule on an annual basis to be added. Any thoughts about that?
I call the question.
You have a motion to amend with a second, and the question's been called, so a vote would be in order.
Let's take a vote.
Commissioner Fast,
Aye.
Commissioner Myers,
No?
Commissioner O'Hara,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick,
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft,
Yes.
Commissioner, and Vice Chair Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, no.
I have 4 votes yes, 2 votes no, it passes.
Mr. Connor, it looks like you have number 7.
No.
Excuse me, Chair.
I'm sorry. Could I have a motion? I guess I already have a first and I have a second.
Yes.
You counted.
So no,
Call the
Do
question.
I,
You now have the motion on the floor as originally placed with the amendment added to it. So you now have the original motion as amended. And now you need to call the, unless there's further discussion.
do we have
What would
any
be in
further
order?
discussion?
Commissioner Fast,
Aye.
Commissioner Myers,
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick,
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft,
Yes.
Commissioner and Vice Chair Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
We have 6 to 0, it passes.
So, Mr. Connor, would you like to go to the next? I'll let Linda read it into the record, and I'll take it from there. All right.
Item number 7, consider authorizing the medical examiner's office to add 1 full-time equivalent FTE autopsy technician position for FY 2022 at a cost of approximately $41,000 in FY 2022 and $72,000 in FY 2023 to be funded by revenue generated by autopsy services provided to outside counties.
Thank you, Vice Chair and Commissioners. Joe Connor, Assistant County Manager. This particular item was brought forward for 2 reasons. One, for the activities of the medical examiner now being open for 2 full years is really starting to provide baseline information of how busy they're actually going to be versus what was planned for originally. I think one of the things that Dr. Peterson and the medical examiner's office has done is really done a good job with the community as far as what's the appropriate way to report deaths, what's the appropriate paperwork, and where should it go. So the medical examiner, if you'll see on here, almost 50% of, in 2020 anyway, 50% of the deaths have been reported to the medical examiner's office from just 11 and a half, 2 years previous. So I think that's a step in the right direction. So with the addition of all the additional work that's in the briefing sheet, I'll let Dr. Peterson go through some of those details, and the addition of the Reno County with the revenue attached with it is the reason why this request is being brought forward now as an immediate action request. So Dr. Peterson, let's you.
Thank you. Dr. Peterson, medical examiner, as he said, our own Johnson County caseload has increased quite a bit over the last 2 years since we have opened. And this is asking for a third, we currently have 2 autopsy technician position. And within the briefing sheet, it outlines just the increase in workload simply for the autopsy technician position, just with our own Johnson County cases. With regard to the question that was asked by the public earlier, this need for this third position existed before we made the agreement with Reno County. So this is separate from that. It is able to be funded because of the revenue produced by Reno County, but we had the need for a third position prior to Reno County. The third position, what it will do is it will allow me to conduct autopsies 6 days a week. Currently, we have a 5-day business plan, and I want to expand that to 6 days. We have had some complaints from family members whose loved one passed away on a Friday, and they have to wait until Monday to get their loved one back to the funeral home. So this will allow us to get loved ones to funeral homes more expeditiously. With 3 autopsy technicians, I'll be able to do autopsies on Saturdays as well and have a rotation for that tech of a 1 and 3 weekend instead of every other one, which is currently not possible with just 2 autopsy techs.
And Dr. Peterson, I want to make some personal comments because I've received calls from somebody who's waiting for their loved one. They've had to postpone the funeral, they've had to postpone expediting what they need. So that also can hinder someone in getting a death certificate as well. So I know I'm in support of this from just what I hear from constituents and the phone calls I've received. Does anybody else have any questions? Commissioner O'Hara.
Thank you. So the amendment in the past on the prior motion, that will cover these expenses, correct? That it will make sure that the Johnson County residents are held harmless as far as cost increase.
Legal, could we get?
I'm going back to see what the original motion was on the previous one, how it's worded. Just give me a second, please. My understanding on the amendment is that the fee schedule as well as the process of providing autopsy services to other counties is what is going to be held harmless. And will come back and then any additional costs would then result in an increase in fees, which would have to come back, as they already said, the plan is to come back. So that relates to that specific operational procedure, and I don't know how I'm not quite clear how you're tying it into this.
Well, because this staff increase is also a requirement to take in the contract services.
Correct.
I don't think it's only that.
Well, it's not only. Oh, I know it's not only, but this is part of this added staff is necessary for us to take in the contract services, or am I misspeaking?
For the current county, Reno County, we do not need an additional autopsy technician simply by the fact of having Reno County. The extra autopsy technician is really to handle Johnson County cases more days out of the week than what we are currently. Reno County sends us very few cases. They anticipate sending us 80 to 100 over the entire year. So we could take care of Reno County without adding an additional autopsy technician. However, this position is fortunate enough to be funded by the revenue provided by Reno County doing that service.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Yes, just for clarification, the motion itself says to be funded by revenue generated by autopsy services provided to outside counties. So it seems to me within the action that is requested, that question is answered in terms of where that funding is coming from. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Peterson. Any more questions?
Jeff.
Commissioner Myers?
That's just going along with why I didn't agree with the amendment to begin with, because it's already being done. We're already making sure that what the amendment's trying to achieve is already happening.
Commissioner Hanslick?
Again, it's a difference between goals and requirements, and I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Commissioner Hanslick?
I'm prepared to make a motion when you're ready, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Let's call the motion.
I move to authorize the medical examiner's office to add 1.0 FTE autopsy technician position for FY 2022 at a cost of approximately $41,000 in FY 2022 and $72,000 in FY 2023 to be funded by revenue generated by autopsy services provided to outside counties.
Myers, second.
Commissioner Hanslick made the first, Commissioner Myers made the second. Can we take a roll call, please?
Question, please.
Commissioner Ashcraft?
Thank you. Mr. Connor, Dr. Peterson, given the conversation that you've been privy to for the last few minutes, question is, and I think Commissioner Hanslick made the point that the way it's stated, these positions are funded by Reno County. If Reno County suddenly decides it no longer needs Johnson County services, what will happen to these positions? How will they be funded?
Then the request would be that they would be funded through the Johnson County budget, because as I said, we would still need this position for Johnson County cases.
So it'd be a separate action then? It's not an automatic transfer of funding, is that correct? Thank you.
Can we call the question?
Okay. Call the question?
Excuse me if I may, I believe, unless I missed it, Clerk, I don't think you took public comment on this.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have any public comments? Any concerns? Okay, with that, let's call the motion again.
Commissioner Fast,
Aye.
Commissioner Myers,
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick,
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
That's passed 6-0.
Thank you.
Item number 8, resolution number WD 22-013, conduct a public hearing and consider authorizing funds for Johnson County wastewater infrastructure improvement projects in an amount not to exceed $4,099,000.
This is a public hearing, so I call to order. Ms. Pekarik?
Good morning, Vice Chair and Commissioners. Susan Pekarik with Wastewater. This is a multiple project briefing sheet. It's part of our capital improvement program, and we typically prepare these multiple project briefing sheets generally 2 to 4 times a year for projects that are routine in nature as part of our capital program. This request includes several different project requests, so I'll go through them one at a time. The first item is the backup prevention program, and the requested amount is $400,000. The Backup Prevention Program, or BUP program, provides assistance to property owners that experience sanitary sewer backups during large rainfall events. The program was initiated in 1998, and it's continued since that time. The demand for services increased over time, and in particular, there were 3 significant storm events in 2017, although it might seem like the last few days are pretty significant as well. So wastewater anticipates that the demand for this program will remain high due to word of mouth from homeowners that have these devices installed, particularly within those last 5 years. And therefore, we're requesting an additional $400,000 for the program. We also presented an overview of this program as part of the manager's memo on March 3rd, if you'd like additional information. The next item is for a project located at 151st and Concert. This is for a sanitary sewer relocation and replacement of several manholes in that area. And the amount requested is $180,000 for design and bid phase services. There is a map of the area on your screen right now showing you, we have a sewer exposed here just south of 151st Street, and the green line represents the existing sewer. The red line represents the anticipated location for that relocation of the sewer. Stream action has eroded the stream bank in that area and exposed the sewer.
Relocation will help us reduce the risk of failure of that sanitary sewer. As I mentioned, we'll be also replacing some sanitary manholes in that area that were identified through our asset management program as in need of replacement. Burns McDonnell will provide engineering services, design and bid phase services for this. They're one of our term and supply engineering consultants that were selected through the county's RFP process for work of this type. The third item on the briefing sheet is for our roof asset management program, and the amount requested is $519,000. Wastewater initiated a roof asset management program back in 2018. We have over 100 buildings across our entire system. This request is for the replacement of 3 roofs as well as coating for one of the other roofs, and also repairs and assessments across the other roofs in our system. We utilize a term and supply contract with a company called Roof Connect. That was authorized by the board back in 2018, and it is through an intergovernmental purchasing cooperative contract, which is now known as Omnia Partners. Roof Connect obtains bids with the local subcontractors, and then those bids are compared with the Omnia line item pricing to help ensure that our prices are within those contract requirements. And the next item is for engineering, treatment, and pumping facility asset renewal. The amount requested here is for $1 million. There are several projects that have been identified through our asset management program that are in need of renewal due to the condition, reliability, risk of failure, or safety concerns. The projects include evaluations, design, and construction of improvements. We've identified at least 9 projects that range from $20,000 to $300,000. Engineering services will be provided by consultants selected under the treatment and pumping asset renewal request for proposal process. SCADA maintenance and integration services will be provided by R.E. Pedrati, who was selected by the county through an RFP. And construction will be completed utilizing either one of our term and supply contractors or utilizing county's purchasing procedures. And finally, the last request is for wastewater facility construction funding. This is in the amount of $2 million, and it's for construction for projects that will be executed as part of the wastewater facilities repair and improvements term and supply contract that was previously approved by the board. These are several smaller projects that have been identified as urgent repairs that are needed to reduce system risk and or address health and safety concerns. Funding requested for this amount is for 6 projects, as well as including some additional funding for any unidentified emergency projects. Projects generally range in size from $50,000 to $500,000. So the total requested amount for all the projects is $4,099,000. These projects were included in the wastewater capital improvement program that was presented most recently to the board last May as part of our financial plan. Thank you. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Ms. McCarrick. Do we have any questions? Commissioner Henslick?
Yes, I think I'm going to jump in front of Commissioner Ashcraft before he asks these questions about term and supply.
Let me move back.
I see that a couple of these items are referring to term and supply contracts that were approved back in 2018. I'm assuming the costs have gone up since then. Can you talk a little bit about that, the rates for those contracts?
Sure, and I'll look to I have some staff here in case they want to add something. So as part of that Omnia contract, that really sets the maximum price. And then what Roof Connect does is they actually then go out to the market and they get bids. And so that helps us make sure that we're not going over that maximum price. Those maximum prices are obtained across the nation from several municipalities, so that allows us to really take advantage of what I would say sort of economy of scale, so to speak. I do anticipate there are escalation clauses in those contracts. I think that's an annual renewal. Is that correct? Yeah. So hopefully that answered your question. So we are bidding, and the market then is helping us maintain competitiveness in the prices that we're using for our roof projects.
Thank you. And I just wanted to remark on the BUPP program. I've heard from a lot of constituents who really appreciate that program, especially those in the older parts of the county. So really appreciate that program. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ashcraft?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate Commissioner Hanslick stopping me from jumping on term and supply discussion too quickly. Sidebar question. Several of these projects appear to be well within the $100,000 threshold authorized by the county manager. Why are these handled in this fashion rather than the county manager just authorizing them within her signature authority?
That's a great question, and I will take a stab at responding and look to the county manager to help me. But as part of our capital improvement program, that does require a public hearing to authorize the funds. And so therefore, we're here to authorize the funds and then.
Even for de minimis amounts?
Correct.
Okay. I didn't recall that, so I appreciate that, that refresher. Couple of comments, Madam Chair. I had the opportunity to visit with Ms. McCarrick yesterday, and she was very convincing because while term and supply contracts, I find them to be excessively used from time to time, I do think they have a place, particularly for smaller projects. It just does not make sense to have a staff-intense process go through to costing hundreds or thousands of dollars to save tens to twenties of dollars. So I respect that. The one that I struggle with is the last one because you mentioned 6 projects ranging from $50,000 to $500,000. And one of the questions I often ask Ms. McCarrick is, particularly for the larger projects, the smaller projects, I understand the grace on that, but the larger projects, how do we assure taxpayers that we are getting the best value for those efforts rather than just from a selected pool of contractors that were pre-authorized?
I appreciate that question this is for our ratepayers, and so we do have
point.
line item.
I misspoke.
And so we do have unit pricing under these term and supply contracts with these contractors. And so we do obtain quotes when we are getting ready to have them do the work. And we have those unit pricing then from the contract to make sure that we're in line with that unit pricing. We also, as you may recall, because I'm in front of you for contract awards as well. So we also have the opportunity to compare the numbers that we're receiving with these quotes with things that we would be bidding out to the market for other projects. So for these smaller projects, we do have the opportunity to understand whether the quotes we're receiving are in line with the scope of work we're asking them to do.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Fast.
Yes, thank you. This program is a program that I talk with all my 11 cities, the mayors and city councilors about. And last year, I emailed them all about the program. Can you forward me again, kind of, application process and criteria so that I can send that out? I have like over 100 city councilors, so I'd like to keep in contact with them on programs. So thank you.
Be happy to.
I would like that too. That's a
Yeah,
I'll send it to
I had a
everyone.
number of city councilors and mayors that came back to me and they put it in their newsletters and found it very helpful.
And to be
Referring
clear,
to
that's the
backup
backup
prevention.
Yeah, the
backup
backup
prevention. Yeah, I'll send
The
that
boop.
to all of you. Ms. McCarrick, you might just CC all of us. I'll do that, so, yeah. If there are no other questions, I'm going to open it up for public comments. Do we have any public comments? With no comments, I'm going to turn back to the commission. I guess I better close that public meeting. I apologize. We'll close the public meeting and go back to the commission for any further comments or a motion. Commissioner Hanslick?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I move the board approve resolution number WD 22-013, authorizing funds for Johnson County wastewater infrastructure improvement projects in an amount not to exceed $4,099,000.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Faust, second.
So I have a first by Commissioner Hanslick and a second by Commissioner Fast. Could you call roll call?
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
And Vice Chair Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
I have 6-0. That item passes. Vice Chair, I would request a 5-minute break at this time, please.
Second.
Let's take a 5-minute break at this time.
Recording in progress.
Mr. Newfield.
Let's call the meeting to order.
Thank you. Item number 9, resolution number 036-22. Hold a public hearing regarding the reorganization of the Transportation Division and responsibilities, Transit, from the Department of Planning, Housing, and Community Development and into the Public Works Department. According to the Home Rule Charter, this matter must come before the Board of County Commissioners.
This is a public meeting.
Good afternoon. Scott Neufeld with County Manager's Office. And it's not quite afternoon, but I just thought I'd get a jump on that. This is a companion piece to the item in April where we kind of foreshadowed this in our intent in moving forward with our transit program. And so this really is, in the words of Commissioner Ashcraft, procedural because the Home Rule Charter requires this mechanism to make a change of this nature. Ostensibly, we made a decision in April to end our interlocal agreement with KCATA and to hire staff. And we also proposed that we do this within the Public Works Division for a number of reasons. And so in order to do this formally, we need to have the public hearing, and this is all tied to the charter. So, you know, generally speaking, this will move Josh, who's currently titled as business liaison, and then 5 positions that we're currently recruiting for 2 and soon a 3rd, and house them in Public Works. Physically, they will be mostly at the transit facility, at the Nolte facility. The financial person will probably have an office in both places because Ryan's financial person has extensive transit background and is going to help train them. So generally speaking, though, they'll office at Nolte, but there'll be a division within Public Works. And so again, this is a charter requirement, and I'm happy to stand for questions, but most of it we did cover, generally speaking, in April.
So are there any questions from the commission? Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Neufeld, thank you for your presentation. I agree it is procedural, but I was wondering, what was the fiscal note with this transfer again?
The fiscal note is ostensibly 0. What we're doing is moving on an annual basis the equivalent of, it won't be annual this year because we're transitioning August 1st, but we have about $584,000 is the contract amount for 22 that we had previously with KCATA. And so those dollars will transition from contractual services to personal services, and that will be our budget for hiring staff. But again, it's really changing the line item, not the total dollars.
And there's no overhead additive to that?
No, the Nolte building is currently occupied with First Transit and WHC, have a number of employees over there. So Josh uses the offices, KCATA staff use the offices. We'll have more presence there than is currently because there'll be a few more people, but it should be negligible and it should not impact the utilities because that building's already open.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions from the Commissioner O'Hara?
Yes, just to make sure that my understanding was in our action in April that this is going to be cost neutral.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions from the commission? With that, I'm going to open up if there's any public comments. With no comments being heard, I'm going to close the public hearing and turn it back over to Commissioner Myers.
Madam Chair, I move to adopt resolution number 036-22, approving the county manager's recommendation that the Transportation Division and responsibilities be recognized from the Department of Planning, Housing and Community Development and into the Public Works Department, and transferring employees, amending prior resolutions, and amending the county code as more fully stated in resolution number 036-22.
Hanslick, second.
I have a first by Commissioner Myers and a second by Commissioner Hanslick. Could you call roll? Oh, I need to close the public hearing. Did I close the public hearing?
You already closed it, but if there's any other
Thank you.
comments.
Is there any other comments? With that, let's call a vote.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
And Vice Chair Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
I have 6-0. That item passed. Now we have item number 10. This item was added to the agenda. Consider authorizing an exception to competition to purchase 15 2022 Ford E450 Glavel cutaway vehicles from Masters Transportation, Incorporated, including the requisite ancillary equipment using $826,242 of state operating funding, $646,806 of Federal Highway Administration, FHWA Surface Transportation Program grant funds, and a local match of $258,702 for a total cost not to exceed $1,731,750. A note for correction. The total cost not to exceed should actually be $1,732,250, and Josh can speak to that.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, good morning. It is still morning for Scott's edification. Josh Powers, Business Liaison. This item pertains, as the clerk mentioned, to fleet replacement for Johnson County Paratransit Service. It's fairly straightforward, but there are some important details. I'll speak to, real briefly, just that clarification that the clerk made. The initial quote for painting these vehicles came in at $6,000. The actual quote was $6,500, and that represents the difference in the amount there, which is 2% increase over the briefing sheet amount. So as you will remember, on May 12th of this year, the BOCC unanimously authorized the purchase of 15 replacement cutaway vehicles from Southern Bus and Mobility for Johnson County use on paratransit service in an amount not to exceed $1,296,000. Immediately following the vote, staff notified Southern Bus and Mobility to proceed with the preparation of contract documents to get that build started. The following Monday, May 16th, Southern Bus and Mobility notified Johnson County staff that their chassis supplier had reneged on their commitment to provide the 15 chassis needed to build the vehicles, and as such, Southern Bus and Mobility is unable to deliver those vehicles to the county and has indicated that they will be unable to fulfill any orders prior to 2023 at the earliest. Given that situation, staff immediately began looking for dealers that could fulfill this vehicle order, and we were able to identify Masters Transportation as a local dealer that has existing stock of both vehicles and chassis that could fulfill this replacement request, although it will be at a higher cost. Nationally, supply chain issues on what are called body-on-chassis products have seen increases in price of 30 to 40%, which is reflected in the quoted price for these vehicles, which is $1,732,250. That's an increase of $434,000 or 33% over the quoted price from Southern Bus and Mobility. An important difference between this purchase and the previous situation is that Masters Transportation not only has the chassis in their possession, but 10 of the 15 vehicles are already built and can be delivered to the county as soon as they are painted in our regional Ride KC branding. The remaining 5 vehicles in this purchase will begin the build immediately and would be delivered to the county in September or October of this year, barring any delay. I should note here that Masters is also requiring a deposit on the remaining 5 vehicles in order to lock in the current price. The briefing sheet indicates a $2,000 per unit deposit, but that initial quote has now risen to a 10% per unit deposit, which equals $58,575. This deposit is non-refundable but does apply to the total purchase cost. For the purchase of these vehicles, as the clerk mentioned, Johnson County Transit will utilize $826,000 of state operating funds, $646,000 of federal surface transportation program funding, and a local match of $258,702, which is an increase of $135,000 over the previous local match requirement for Southern Bus and Mobility. The local match will account for approximately 16% of the total cost. As I mentioned, these vehicles are used extensively in our paratransit service, or exclusively on our paratransit service, and are needed for fleet replacement to replace existing vehicles that are past their useful life, defined by the FTA as 5 years or 150,000 miles. The average age of the 15 cutaways is 9.4 years, with the 4 oldest cutaways being 11 years old. Those 4 are out of service due to structural integrity issues and are unusable. The remaining vehicles are all over 200,000 miles on the drive chain and the transmission. The consequence of not replacing these vehicles include increased maintenance cost, increased oil usage, and a degraded customer experience. The 15 vehicles that we are replacing cost more to maintain than do vehicles within their useful life, which translates to a cost per mile of 13 cents for these 15 vehicles, compared with a cost per mile of 4 to 5 cents for the newer vehicles that are under warranty. Additionally, the cost to procure body-on-chassis products continues to increase, and suppliers are pushing new orders out to 2024 due to supply shortages. So this purchase represents an opportunity for Johnson County Transit to both improve our fleet and mitigate the risks associated with supply chain shortages. With that, I'm happy to stand for questions. Thank you, Mr. Powers. Is there any questions from the commission? Commissioner Hanslick.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Powers, for that explanation. I know that none of us want to have to pay more for anything, but from the information you presented, it seems that our choices are pretty limited in terms of if we choose not to do this, we have no idea when we might be able to get these vehicles, and most likely it will cost even more than what's being presented here, even with the increase. And I think most importantly is the potential impact on our paratransit riders, that they count on these services, and they count on us to provide safe vehicles. And so I really don't see that we have a lot of options except to approve this. And I think it's also a positive that we can get these vehicles right away and replace those that are no longer safe. So thank you for presenting this, and I'm very supportive of it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do we have any more? Commissioner Ashcraft.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I had the opportunity to visit with Mr. Powers briefly yesterday, and Commissioner Hanslick, I think your observations are valid. The question I asked him was what happens if we wait, and he bristled at me at even the suggestion of that. But the question I asked was, so what is the return on investment of trying to milk out more life with the aging fleet versus going ahead and committing to this escalation? And Mr. Powers, you offered a 13 cents per mile for the older equipment, I believe is what you said, and 4 to 5 cents per mile. But can you take it to the next level? I mean, what is the anticipated range? I mean, how many miles are we talking about? On the surface, that's persuasive. But if it's 1,000 miles, that's only a few $100s. If it's tens of thousands of miles, then it would well justify the cost increase. Can you give us that information?
Yes, sir, and I probably will have to follow up, Commissioner Ashcraft, Josh Powers, Business Liaison. I'll follow up with specifics for each vehicle, but we're not talking tens of thousands, we're talking hundreds of thousands of miles annually.
Fair enough.
The cost is there, and I would respectfully inform the board that I did not bristle at the Commissioner's question. I'm happy to answer any question at any time.
No, he just rolled his eyes and wondered, do I have to sit here any longer? No, fair enough. But do you have those
So I'm spitballing here off the top of my head, approximately 250,000 miles a year, but I can provide down to the mile for each 15 of the vehicles.
No, so 250, quick math. Okay, okay.
It's a substantial savings, and
Yes.
the last thing I'll add, and I don't mean to drag on the conversation, but, you know, as these engines age, they use more oil, that's an additional cost. It takes up additional staff time for the maintenance staff to keep them running. The cost or the risk of transmission blowing and engine replacement, which can cost anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000 depending, is substantial. So those are the risks.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Commissioner Fast.
Yes, I mean, I think you're really, I mean, I applaud you thinking long-term. This could be half a year, 9 months before we get these vehicles, and that we have our own repair. I mean, real high quality. I was very impressed when I went with you to see, on-site repairs, so that how we extend the life of all these vehicles. I mean, I think the efficiency of this program is just, it should be applauded.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hanslick?
Yes, I just wanted to add one more thing to the conversation with Commissioner Ashcraft about the outcomes in terms of the mileage and the cost and everything. To me, the other concern I would have is I'm just envisioning a vehicle broken down by the side of the road with passengers inside, and that is a completely unacceptable scenario, and we can't even take a chance that would happen when you've mentioned that most of these vehicles in the fleet are kind of on their last legs. And so that's my main concern, are the people, the riders.
Mr. Powers, I also want to comment, I appreciate you bringing this forward. Growing up in a household around a lot of cars, and that it was my dad's objective. I needed to learn to change my tires and my oil, and now I don't even know how I do the oil change. It's all computerized. So anyway, I appreciate that. Is there any comments from the public? With that, I'm going to bring it back before the Commissioner O'Hara.
Thank you. Josh, how's the ridership going on the fixed routes?
So I can, again, we did cover this back in April and provided that information and can resend. I would say, I'd quantify it in this way. Express route ridership is not great. As we come out of the pandemic and people are returning either to hybrid work or working in person, our hope is to, with the changes that we've recently introduced as far as streamlining those express route services, the intent there is to, again, test the waters and make sure that the ridership can get better. Local fixed route ridership is doing well compared to 2020 and the pandemic. Paratransit ridership is up a lot, and microtransit ridership is up a lot.
Okay, can you give me, can you send me the numbers on the express route and
Absolutely.
And what that's costing us?
Of course.
Thank you.
Back before the commission, do I have a motion? Commissioner Myers.
Madam Chair, I move to approve an exception to competition to purchase 15 2022 Ford E450 Glavel cutaway vehicles from Masters Transportation Incorporated, including a requisite ancillary equipment using $826,242 of state operating funding and $646,806 of Federal Highway Administration, otherwise known as FHWA Surface Transportation Program grant funds, and a local match of $258,702 for a total cost not to exceed $1,732,250.
Do I hear a second?
Second, Hanslick.
Commissioner Myers first, Commissioner Hanslick second. Could I call roll, please? Commissioner O'Hara?
Yes, I just have one other question. These are coming totally finished. There's not going to be additional costs for outfitting each of these vehicles. They come turnkey, correct?
Yes, ma'am. That's the ancillary equipment part.
Okay, thank you.
Call roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick,
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Ellenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
I have 6-0. That item passes.
Let's move to reports and communication management reports.
Yes, Chairman and Commissioners, have a few items for you this morning, and I'll ask Susan Pekarik to come forward to the podium. You may recall last week we had this item to discuss a delivery plan for Nelson Wastewater Treatment Facility improvements. She does have a few slides. I think there's only 6, but it is important that you know as we proceed in the coming weeks with some items coming forward on Nelson that you understand the delivery plan and serves as a reminder.
Thank you, Penny. Thank you, Vice Chair and Commissioners. We'll be brief because we know in the interest of time you have a lot more ahead of you today. This is for your information only for some items that will be coming, or an item I should say that will be coming next week. I do want to take a moment to introduce Patrick Denning. He is our Assistant Chief Engineer for existing infrastructure. And it is Patrick and his team that are leading the Nelson project. So I'm just the one talking. He and his team are doing all the work. So I think it's important to recognize those that are doing all the work, and he'll be answering questions as well if you have them. So very quickly here, what we wanted to do is just give you an overview and a reminder of the Nelson project, where we are with the project, how we plan to deliver that project, and then next steps. As I said, we'll be coming before you here next week for one of the first items. You might recall we closed the WIFIA loan. That loan was actually approved by the board on April 28th, and then it was delivered just last week to EPA. So once the state finally closed that loan, or approved the loan for closure, I should say. Design is underway, and we anticipate 30% design will be completed later this summer. At that time, we'll be going back to the neighbors, to the public, to have another meeting with them to talk about the project. The challenging part about the project is that the construction environment remains challenging. There is supply chain disruptions still happening on projects that we're doing right now, and we anticipate that could impact the Nelson project. Inflation remains a concern. 2021 saw a lot of inflation in the construction market, as we've talked about before. And so the design team, we brought the construction manager at risk on board late last fall, and they're working with the design team, and they're continuing to value engineer that project as we continue to work to mitigate the risk of these challenges. So a reminder on our project delivery plan, we are utilizing a construction manager at risk project delivery method, or CMAR. And the reason we're doing that is that this project's going to have multiple phases, and it's technically challenging. The Nelson complex is actually 2 wastewater treatment facilities located on the same site. We'll be rebuilding that as 1 treatment facility. There will be a lot of phases involved in the project. And so it was really important to bring that construction manager at risk on board early so that they could work with the design team, provide feedback to the design, construction sequencing, as well as construction feasibility. And so as part of the phasing then, we also anticipate having multiple guaranteed maximum price packages. And so the construction manager at risk works with the design team. They develop a package or a scope, and then they develop a guaranteed maximum price to deliver that. And the reason that will be advantageous to do multiple GMPs, we've listed a few here on your slide. So for example, coordinating projects with other cities, and that's in fact the one we'll be bringing to you next week. City of Mission is planning on doing a road replacement or a road overlay project along Fox Ridge. We need to do work under Fox Ridge, and so therefore we want to make sure that we're getting our work done before they come in and lay down a nice new road. We don't want to tear that up. We've talked about price escalation, so we want to take advantage of the market. We might purchase materials or equipment early in order to avoid price escalation that we anticipate. We can also utilize it to improve our schedule. So we can purchase materials early while the design is finishing up, and therefore we can get a jump on the work as soon as the materials arrive. The other thing, by breaking up the GMP into multiple packages, we're able to provide more opportunities for local contractors with those packages. We can size them such that we're able to increase that competitiveness with increasing interest from multiple contractors. And I think I talked about the work sequencing already. And the construction manager at risk, McCarthy, they are doing, already doing, I should say, outreach with the local vendor market. All of the work packages will be competitively bid. They will do that in accordance with the state statutes and also with WIFIA loan requirements, such as prevailing wage and American iron and steel requirements. They have been engaging local contractors. They've got a website to engage them. They're having outreach events. And in addition, making sure that through these outreach events that these subs and subcontractor suppliers do understand the details of the project. We also have purchasing staff that are involved throughout that process. And again, all of these things are helping us mitigate our risk on this project. And so I'll just wrap up with, here's our anticipated schedule for bringing guaranteed maximum prices. The first one we'll be bringing to you next week. That is to purchase pipe material for that force main that we need to install underneath Fox Ridge Drive. The second one, GMP2, that will include the installation of that pipe. This allows us, again, to order that pipe because it does have a long lead time, and then we'll be back before you to actually amend the contract for the installation of the work. The other three GMPs are right now anticipated. Again, as the design team and the CMAR continue to work together, they're working to optimize what the right number of GMPs look like with the phasing, and again, make sure that we're mitigating our risk on that project. And with that, I think those are all my slides. So I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have them. If not, the purpose was just to provide some information. So, any questions? Mr. Ashcraft?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. McCarrick, do we have a Buy American preference, especially for these infrastructure, steel products in particular?
There is a requirement under WIFIA for Buy American Steel.
Good.
Or American Iron and Steel, I should say. American Iron and Steel, excuse me. I didn't state that correctly. Yeah.
Commissioner Myers. Mr. Denning, is that correct? Your hair may not be that color by the time you get done with this project.
I assume that will be the case, yeah.
Yeah, that was Jeff Myers that said that.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. McCarrick.
Okay, thank you, Susan and team. The next item is a major projects update and a few highlights for you. The new Shawnee MedAct facility design development has been completed and value engineering ideas have been identified due to recent escalations in construction costs that we've even talked about today, material availability and other market conditions. We will schedule a conversation with you all soon regarding budget challenges with that project. Coleman property project abatement work to remove contaminants from underground pits and chases performed by KDHE has been completed. Demolition work continues, but at a slower pace due to wet conditions in the field. Substantial completion is anticipated in third quarter of this year. Household hazardous waste project, property purchase located at 11231 Maston Street, Overland Park, has been closed and is now under the ownership of Johnson County. The City of Overland Park approved the special use permit for the land use on May 9th. Construction documents are anticipated to be complete by the end of second quarter to initiate city plan review, with construction anticipated to start in third quarter of 2023. Those are a few highlights, and then if there's questions, please, looks like there's a question. Commissioner O'Hara.
Thank you. So on the Coleman plant, Mr. Waters, we're still under budget?
Yes, Commissioner. Joe Waters, County Manager's Office Assistant and acting, anyway, you know. I forget the titles right now. We are under budget right now. The project has been delayed while the state stepped in a very positive way, helping us to They were resolving additional remediation that we uncovered. We're still in progress here, though, so those fingers crossed that we will remain under budget.
Have we gotten permission to bury the tear-down materials on
Yep.
site?
Yes, ma'am, we have from the state, KDG.
Okay. And the public needs to know that the structure is down.
Yes,
And-
thank you. The remaining work on site is to dispose of the rubble that's been accumulated, as well as some additional flat work to be removed and then see what's under that.
And the public nuisance has been eliminated. It's fenced, the kids can't get into the site. And so the public safety issue has been addressed correctly. Is that correct?
Yes, it has. There's still holes there, need to be filled. We can't get into the property here with the weather, but yes.
But it's fenced off, correct?
The building is down, but we do have holes.
Right, okay, those underground, okay.
Yes.
Right, thank you.
Another commissioner, Commissioner Hanslick.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Hanslick.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate Commissioner O'Hara bringing up the Coleman plant because I want to remind people this is a situation where the county has cleaning up the mess left behind because of a failed business. There's been a lot of conversation lately about the county's role in assisting businesses, and this is a very good example of where the county has stepped in because a business failed. And we do not own that property, but we went in and cleaned it up because it was a public safety issue. And I think that, I'm not arguing that was not an appropriate thing for us to do, but we need to remember that there are times the county does take a role of assisting businesses when needed. So I just want to point that out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next item is a notice of public hearing. The City of Olathe has notified the board that they will be conducting a public hearing on Tuesday, June 7th. The purpose of the public hearing is to consider the issuance of $48,850,000 in industrial revenue bonds and a 50% 10-year property tax abatement. The project is for a 567,840 square foot industrial building to be located at approximately the northwest corner of 159th and Old Highway 56 in the I-35 Logistics Park. The project applicant is Scannell Properties number 634 LLC. The notice of public hearing and cost-benefit report that shows a cost-benefit ratio of 2.21 for Johnson County were attached to the manager's memo. And I will pause and see if there's questions. It looks like there's commissioner comment.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Thank you. Well, speaking of helping businesses, this $48 million IRB, I do want to state that Olathe has limited their tax incentives to 50% of the projects, and I applaud that because some of the entities, cities within the Johnson County area far exceed that. And so the county has no jurisdiction over IRBs, but we do have jurisdictions over tax increment finance districts. So anyway, just want to make that comment. Thank you.
Another commissioner?
Oh, Commissioner Hanslick, I apologize.
Okay. Yes, thank you. No, I appreciate this notification, and as Commissioner O'Hara said, I think it's really important to recognize the county commission has very, very limited authority over any kind of tax incentives. If that is someone's major concern, they should think about running for city council instead of county commission, because we don't have much to do with that. So if that's your major concern, that's where you need to look, is at the cities. The county has very little authority over that. As Commissioner O'Hara said, we do have the authority over the creation of TIF districts. However, usually those districts are created so early in the process, there's very little information to cause us to have reason to see a negative impact on the county, which is something we have to provide by state statute. And we can't just, because we want to or feel like it, veto a TIF district, we have to have a real reason for that. So I just want to make sure people understand the county commission has very limited authority over tax incentives. Thank you.
Commissioner O'Hara?
Oh, thank you. I think that the state statute does give the county flexibility as to whether they wish to veto the creation of the TIF districts. And $2.8 billion are currently under tax increment finance district property tax sheltering. And on IRBs, it's $1.1 billion. So it's an issue, and it needs to be addressed at multiple levels. It needs to be addressed at the state legislature level. It needs to be addressed at the city level, and it needs to be addressed at the county level. And also, the school districts have veto power over these districts too. So, thank you.
Okay, next item, the BOCC June 6th meeting information is in your packet for the special meeting scheduled for Monday, June 6th at 2 o'clock in the hearing room at the Johnson County Administration Building regarding proposed solar amendments recommended by the Planning Commission. So these amendments would allow utility scale solar facilities in unincorporated areas of Johnson County. The memo outlines the process, so in the interest of time, I guess I would encourage you, if you have questions, to get with legal, unless you have questions now.
Commissioner Ashcraft?
Process question. Earlier, there was discussion, I recall, to hold this at Embassy Suites, and I was wondering what the motivation was for moving it back to this facility.
Well, based on the number and consultation with the sheriff's office, we moved it back here, and Joe Waters may be able to expand on that if there's additional questions.
Well, I think the additional question...
And the chairman, of course.
Excuse me. I think the additional question is, I don't know how many people will show up, but if enough people show up, this room gets very tight very quickly. And while the Embassy Suites may be too expansive for people to be able to spread out and not feel the pressure of confinement, might have some advantage.
I expressed my concern about it too. I don't understand the reasoning to have it here. I mean, I bet there's going to be over 100 speakers, and I've expressed that to Joe. The setup is not great in here, and also, yeah, it's not a good setup for a large crowd.
Mr. Waters, it's my understanding that the chairman did discuss with the sheriff. Joe Waters, Assistant County Manager. I believe the chairman spoke with the sheriff. I know that I spoke with the sheriff. Initially, our thought process was it worked satisfactorily at the hotel, and presuming a similar turnout, that would be our plan. After the Planning Commission, and that was the plan that we put together, again, with the sheriff. He concurred with that, and of course, the chairman did ultimately make that decision. However, after the Planning Commission meeting, where there was really a much smaller group, a few speakers, and that had not traditionally been the case. The Planning Commission meeting had always attracted a lot of interest, a lot of attendees. We rethought that, talked with the sheriff again, and he believed that, yes, indeed, this facility would be satisfactory and we should move back here, and the chairman concurred. So, Mr. Waters, I feel confident in talking to the chairman yesterday that he had spoke with the sheriff along with yourself, and I feel that that is his job and that we rely on him for his expertise. So the meeting will be here. Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes, I agree with Commissioners Fast and Ashcraft that given the public interest, both pro and con, for the solar regulations, I am very disappointed that the decision was made to move it from the Embassy Suites And it did cause a lot of confusion with the public because they had heard that it was going to be at the Embassy Suites, and then it was posted on the website. And I understand that this is not a public hearing, that this is simply the board accepting public comments. However, in the mind of the public, they are expecting the same type of notice as they would on a public hearing, because they're not going to differentiate between those two processes. And so I am very concerned, and if we have an overflow crowd, naturally people are going to have to go down into the lower level, I'm assuming. Is that correct, Mr. Waters?
The plan as it pretty much is on any given Thursday is we want to fill this room, then move out to the atrium, open the curtains and that sort of thing, pipe the sound out there as we have done in the past. Ultimately, if the crowd then is even larger, then we move downstairs where we are simulcasting as well.
And the problem with that is that it feels very exclusionary to be outside of the boardroom, and heaven forbid if you're sent down to the dungeon, you just have this feeling of not being connected with the process, and the public has the right to make their comments to us face to face. I think that this was a bad judgment call as far as moving the venue. At this point, I don't think that there's anything that we can do about it, and I just hope that we have the capacity without turning people away and asking them to go down to the lower level.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Yes, thank you. I've shared these same concerns myself. I've wondered if the sheriff's available to provide any further information and perhaps reassurance of the security that his staff intends to provide. I'm thinking back to the Charter Commission meeting that was held down in the basement, I think at the sheriff's suggestion, and there were a lot of problems with that meeting. Yeah.
So Mr. Waters, there was public notice that was given, and that's already gone out, so the public has already been notified. The public hearing is in place.
It's not a public hearing.
Well, not a public hearing that the public can attend, so there has been notice given. This has already been discussed with the sheriff, and so I think these comments are noted, and then we just need to move forward.
I guess in the future, I would have liked to have a I talked to you about it 2-3 weeks ago, my concerns, and then like staff, there was confusion with staff, didn't even know if it was changed or not. I guess in the future, when we have such a big event that we're communicated with, that we can give our input on this. And I felt like there was that our input was not taken at all.
So noted.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Thank you. Yes, to Commissioner Fast's points, I think that absolutely, that this is an example how the Board of County Commissioners are not making these decisions. And these types of decisions need to be made by the board. I know that the chair can unilaterally make these decisions, but this is impacting all of the commissioners on this dais. And I think that our input needed to be taken into consideration, and we were not consulted. So I hope that it goes well on the 6th. But I do have some concerns.
It's all noted, and the chairman did have conversations with the sheriff, and that's his role of being the sheriff, and so the comments were made by him, and I feel confident in whatever plan that he has in place. So let's take note of these comments and move forward.
Okay. Next item is Meadowbrook Park Festival, a free public celebration of art and parks hosted by Parks and Recreation Foundation of Johnson County, will take place at Meadowbrook Park this Friday, June 3rd. The new Meadowbrook Park Festival, which falls close to the 3rd anniversary of the park's opening, will be from 3 to 9 p.m. on the park's Great Lawn located at 9101 Knoll Avenue in Prairie Village. And with that, Chairman, I'll stand for questions.
Do we have any questions? Let's move to commissioner comments. Commissioner O'Hara.
Thank you. As you all know, I am very concerned about the truck traffic on all of our arterial roadways, and not even our secondary, I'm going to rephrase that, our secondary county roads. And our board resolution adopted CARNAP, which is part of the update of the Johnson County Rural Comprehensive Plan, that talks that our CARNAP guiding principles is not to accommodate interstate truck traffic. It is Johnson County's position that it is a primary function of the state and interstate system to provide adequate access through the county for interstate truck traffic. Due to safety concerns and high maintenance costs, Johnson County will take aggressive action to discourage through truck traffic on local routes. It will start by conducting a study for the unincorporated area to determine the needs for local trucks and establish truck routes to fulfill those needs. That was never done. It was never done. So we have statutes that local authorities with respect to highways under their jurisdiction, also by ordinances or resolution, may prohibit the operation of trucks or other commercial vehicles, or may impose limitations as to weight and size thereof on designated highways. And we are not talking about highways. We are talking about secondary streets. And 199th Street, I know that Commissioner Hanslick was out driving around on those, I believe a week or so ago. I was out riding my bike on Saturday, and I was on those roadways, and they are absolutely inappropriate for semi-truck traffic, interstate truck traffic. Limitations shall be designated by appropriate signs placed on such roadways, provided that adjacent premises to such restricted streets may be served, and such restrictions do not apply to streets which is a connecting link of the state highway system unless a satisfactory alternative route is provided. And that alternative route is the interchange at I-35 and 207th Street. It's the Homestead route. So I am making a motion that I move the Board of County Commissioners of Johnson County to direct the county staff and Sheriff's Office to take action in accordance with the Comprehensive Arterial Road Network Plan as adopted by the board to discourage through traffic use on all county secondary roads. So not just 199th Street, but all of these roads that we are having these issues with the intermodal, Moonlight, Gardner Road, 207th, 215th, 191st, I mean all county secondary roads unless designated as a truck route.
Mr. Pedic, I am going to call you up to the podium, please, and I probably am going to also ask the county manager to get involved. And I apologize because it seems like we're here every week. And you have extensively been working on meetings, you have worked with the Sheriff's Office, so could you, again, go through detail of what's going on behind the scenes?
Good afternoon, Brian Pedig, Public Works. Yes, this is something that, Commissioner Allenbrand, you've been facilitating a discussion with Edgerton and Gardner, and this goes back many years, and specifically the southwest area where we have the Burlington Northern and a lot of development that has brought this truck traffic. That's where we have started those safety improvements that we've discussed the last few weeks, and we have the last segment to be completed next year between Clare Road and US 169. The group is looking at this area, and we're right now finishing traffic counts and specifically truck classifications. What type of trucks do we have? Where are they at? What's the volumes? Where do we have an issue? Where don't we have an issue? In coordinating amongst the three entities. And that would actually be expanded to Miami County and Spring Hill. We're involving them in the conversation so we can have a consensus as to where we think we should have trucks, to your point, Commissioner O'Hara, and where we shouldn't. And that would fold into the idea of where do we have a truck problem? Where do we need to make some types of changes? So I expect to do those types of conversations. I would note that 199th Street has been noted as a major arterial CARNAP Type 3 for many, many years, and that CARNAP did contemplate
the issue of cut-through truck traffic, and that was not so much trucks originating or at the destination in the county, but it was trucks using I-35, cutting through, trying to access K-10. So those types of issues the county was, and my understanding was we didn't have the issue at the time of truck cut-through traffic. We don't know of any area, and it wasn't, there wasn't any value in conducting a truck study trying to see if there was a problem when we weren't aware of any. Could you also talk about the meetings with the sheriff's office and working with the sheriff's office and the deputies with speed limits and that study that happens on those roads? So as a separate item, we have been working with the sheriff at looking at speed limits on some of our arterial roads, seeing if they're posted correctly, and we do anticipate bringing an item in front of the board here in the next few weeks regarding changes to some of those speed limits. Do we have any more questions, Commissioner Ashcraft?
Well, to facilitate discussion, I will second the motion.
Commissioner O'Hara, do you have another?
Yes, and you and I are discussing the increase of speed limits on Kenneth Road, but this is, the speed limits have nothing to do with truck traffic. As Mr. Pedic, as you have commented, this has been in discussion for a long time. And my point is that we need to take action now because this is unsafe. I mean, interstate highways, you don't ride your bike on an interstate highway. You don't walk on an interstate highway. Unimproved secondary roads, you should not have interstate truck traffic on. And we have had people week after week come and talk about the issue. I mean, we've had a gentleman that was killed on Gardner Road. I mean, what more do we need? And all I'm asking is for us to put into place what already is allowed by statute. We have the right to do this. And if we put it out there that we are not going to allow this truck traffic and that the sheriff is going to be encouraged to issue citations, this will quickly go away. Then it gives us time to establish, well, okay, we're going to establish such and such as a truck route, which means that we're going to expend hundreds of thousands of dollars in improvements because we can't actually designate a truck route on these roads that have no shoulders. They have total immediate drops into the ditches. And this is a safety issue. And yes, we have been discussing this forever. 199th Street was designated as an arterial years before truck traffic, never ever imagining that there was going to be interstate truck traffic on that. And so we need to put in place, we need to put public safety, number one. And it is, and I'm sure, Mr. Pedic, you do agree that truck traffic on these secondary roads, such as 199th, it's not safe.
So I don't agree with that statement. We do have roads in the county, hundreds of miles, that do not have any safety improvements. So these improvements were going to occur in 199th point at some point in time. Trucks being on those roads, I don't consider them unsafe or dangerous. Certainly a truck crash has a higher severity than just a normal sedan. If we thought a road was unsafe or dangerous, we would close it, which we have done. Commissioner Hanslick.
Thank you. I think, was it Yogi Berra that said, isn't this deja vu all over again? I thought we had this discussion last week. And my recollection is that no one on this dais is unconcerned about truck traffic, but we also do not want to put in place a knee-jerk reaction that may or may not be helpful. So my question is there an anticipated timeline for when these discussions might bring a recommendation before the county commission or to any of the city councils? Maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
We hope to complete traffic counts within the next few weeks.
Okay.
That will then allow this analysis and discussion. Coordinating a consensus between entities with competing interests, that's tough to put a time frame on. I think that Commissioner Allenbrand
is doing a great job working this process forward. It's going to take several months, and even then, I don't know what the outcome will be, but I'm hopeful that a consensus can be reached on some of the concern you have, which is at least address safety issues, maybe where future developments are, what type of developments. That's going to be an ongoing conversation.
Thank you.
And, you know, I appreciate your comments, Commissioner Hanslick. We don't want to make a knee-jerk response. I came in office on January the 11th and started getting some calls on roads, and you and your staff have been so proactive in areas where we needed safety, where areas we needed to fix. We've been doing that, but also doing the study. And during COVID, there wasn't a lot of people moving around, you know, some trucks, you know, there was things moving, but you have to do a study, and we have to rely on experts who are trained. You have a degree. You are trained. And one of the things that we did, part of these committee meetings, I think it was your comment, I said, you know, if all the elected officials would stay out of it and let the city, and that's who's been attending these meetings, is the city staff, the Miami County staff has been meeting with your team, and you've been having these meetings, and then we're gonna all come back together again. It's not gonna happen overnight. This is important to me. I live out there. I drive these roads all the time, and they are dangerous. You know, I can't imagine that if you put a stop on trucks right now without having a plan in place, what kind of danger that would create and more deaths. And then I also can't imagine that the sheriff has so much free time to be doing citations like that until we have a true plan in place. I don't believe it's this diocese's expert opinion to come up with a truck route. And so I totally oppose this. I want to commend the staff for all the work they're doing, and I hope we can move forward. Commissioner O'Hara.
Thank you. This is not a knee-jerk reaction. This is taking responsibility, and under statute, we have this authority. These trucks have been an issue for years, and we have the right to prohibit trucks on our secondary roads if adequate access is available, and that adequate access is available on the interchange that was paid for by the state of Kansas at Homestead. And for these, and it is not going to take the sheriff much effort to get the word out quickly to the truckers, because these truckers do not want to have citations on their record. So this is simply a safety issue. We cannot allow these types of interstate trucking routes to be used on our secondary roads, and we have the authority. This is not a knee-jerk reaction. We have the statutory authority. The cities do it all the time, and we need to take action so that we don't continue to have these hazardous conditions out on our roadways.
Commissioner Myers.
Thank you, Chair. I myself, as a county commissioner, I rely heavily on our staff's recommendations. They are the professionals. They are the ones that will help lead us to understand circumstances that need to be taken, actions that need to be taken, and I am not hearing at this time that that is an action that needs to be taken.
And Commissioner Myers, I want to expand on that. It's not just the county staff. His staff has been working with our city partners, and so you've got city involved, and you also have KDOT. There's a lot of other entities are involved in that. If there's no other commissioners here to speak, Commissioner Ashcraft?
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, you're coming back with information that I could move to table this motion, right? You're coming back with a study, correct? And you will have more information at that point. So, I mean, one option here is I could move to table your motion at the time when you come forth with the traffic count and the traffic, the work with Commissioner Allebrand, then you'll have more information. We don't have all the information now.
Madam Chair.
Ashcraft. Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I will grant that impromptu motions can be pesky, but I would suggest that Commissioner O'Hara has been consistent in her peskiness, and it's been an issue that's, I think, weighs on all of us to some degree. I see a disconnect in the conversation, though, and I was wondering if Mr. Pedic could help clarify it for me. Commissioner O'Hare, you may have to repeat what you said, but I believe you made reference that the current CARNAP plan recognized, identified, and tried to act upon interstate truck traffic on our secondary roads. So this is a long-standing issue that probably has not redeveloped anew, but I think is intensifying with the warehouse development out there and will continue to grow. So Commissioner Allenbrand, your efforts, Mr. Pedic, your efforts to move forward are fine, but the disconnect I'm struggling with a little bit is there is no immediate stopgap effort, which I think Commissioner O'Hare is asking about, that would help minimize the most egregious truck traffic violations based on the existing CARNAP rules that could be pursued?
So the CARNAP truck restrictions she's speaking to were a concern when the county, and I'm going off my recollection of having worked with people like Dean Palos and Norm Bowers when CARNAP was put together, that the concern was that if the county adopted CARNAP, they were concerned that folks might start using the county routes to connect from I-35 to K-10, trying to cut across the county. And correctly, they said that's the state's job, is right, interstate truck traffic, truck access. Developments that have truck traffic, they weren't intending to say, let's stop that a truck originating or having a destination in the county will need to use our local roads. So it's kind of a question really of development. And once the warehouse went in, and if a truck in their warehouse or the intermodal needs to get to US 169 or to an area in Spring Hill or an area in Miami County, they're going to necessarily need to use the local roads.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Excuse me, thank you. Two thoughts or questions is, one, I appreciate what Commissioner Ashcraft is saying. However, quoting something he often says is, I don't have enough data to make this decision. I mean, I'm hearing that it's a problem, but I don't know the extent. I don't know what roads. And then the other question I have is, the motion that, or the motion that's before us has no details in terms of what type of trucks, what weight of trucks. Is it everywhere in the whole county, the unincorporated area? To me, it's just too broad of a motion to be workable. So those are my two concerns about, two of my many concerns about the motion.
And Commissioner Hanslick, those are points well taken, because we also have Cisco trucks, we also have farmers out there that are hauling. So I guess at this point, we just need to call, we have a motion in place, and just call a vote. So let's just call a vote. Commissioner O'Hara?
Thank you. Mr. Pedic, you said that these trucks have no alternative, but that they have to go across county roads, but that's not correct, in that they can go up I-35 and connect with 169 highway. It's these trucks are damaging our roadways, and when they are on unimproved two-lane roads that have no shoulders, and they have dangerous, significant drop-offs into ditches, and this motion is made in accordance with our already established comprehensive arterial road network plan. And I am just asking that this has been in place forever. We simply enforce what we already have on the books, and that is that CARNAP is not to accommodate interstate truck traffic. That's not. That's our secondary roads were not built for that. It endangers our citizens, are residents of Johnson County, and we simply already have this in place, and I'm just asking that it be enforced. And then if we come back and say, okay, this is what we need to do. We need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to improve Road X and Road Y, and we're going to designate them as truck routes. And I think if we come back and we say that we're going to have tremendous pushback from the residents of this county because they don't want to pay for truck traffic. And not only if we put that in place and then the trucks use that, they're going to be pounding these roads to death. We already have the interstate roads, we already have state highways, and if it takes 10 more minutes for the truck to use I-35, I don't care. I don't care. What I care about is the safety of the residents of Johnson County. And we have people out on bikes on these roads. We even have pedestrian traffic on these roads.
Commissioner O'Hara, I think that we're all sitting on this dais, and we all are very concerned about these roads. I think you and your staff are very concerned about these roads. And, I disagree. I'm not in favor of this because I feel like that if you put a motion through and you don't think about it, and you don't think it through, and you don't have all the facts, it's going to cause more mass chaos than having a precise plan to move forward. So I'm calling for a vote.
I would like to move to amend her motion to table Commissioner O'Hara's motion till we have data, plan, we have outcomes, what are outcomes of success that you always ask for. We have no data and information here. So I would like to move until Brian presents us more information in writing. We have nothing in writing in terms of analysis. And as someone who spent years at the University of Kansas as a policy analysis for the state of Kansas, I don't work that way. I would like to have some information. So that is my motion to table it.
Second, Hanslick.
I want to make a comment, please.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Thank you. This is not redoing policy. This is simply enforcing policy that's in place and has been in place for years. This is not something that I have just pulled out of the sky. I've done extensive research on this, and no one on this dais can say that it's appropriate for interstate truck traffic to be using our secondary roads that are not improved. And we need an interim. We just simply need to enforce what we already have on the books. But let's take a vote.
Legal, I do have a question. So since we've already made a comment that he's coming back in a few weeks with a suggestion, after those reports are made, why do we need to have an amendment?
Well, you now have a motion and a second to
Just go
table
ahead
this
and
until
Okay.
such time as Public Works comes back with additional information and data as stated
Okay.
in the motion. So that is the motion before you that needs to be acted on first.
Okay. So it's the motion that Commissioner Fast to table. Well, let's call a vote.
I need a second on that
We had a
motion.
first from Commissioner Fast and a second from Commissioner Hanslick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a
Com-
motion to table, correct?
To table until Mr. Petey comes back with the facts.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
No.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
No.
And Vice Chair Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
I have 4-2, it passes.
I don't even know where we're at anymore. We're still at your comments, Commissioner O'Hara.
I think I've commented enough today.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, okay, Commissioner Myers,
No comment.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of notes I want to make. First of all, I had the privilege last Monday on Memorial Day of recognizing our service members who gave their life for our country at the event at the Johnson County Memorial Gardens that was hosted by the American Legion Post 370 and the VFW Post 846 in Overland Park. It was a very moving and beautiful ceremony. Dave White, who's a former Overland Park City Council person, spoke about his experiences as a veteran, and I very much appreciated that opportunity. Last night, I had the opportunity to participate in a ribbon cutting with the Leawood Chamber of Commerce, even though it was for a business that's actually in Overland Park in District 4. I want to welcome that new business. It's called Very. It's over near College and Metcalf, and they do office furnishings. You might remember at one point there was something called the Veridesk. That's their company, and we're so thrilled that they chose Overland Park as their 15th national site. So we welcome them to Johnson County. Thirdly, I want to recognize that June is LGBTQ Pride Month, and I am grateful to live in a community that is welcoming to all people, and that all people can be here and live and work and be treated fairly and with respect. And finally, I did want to mention in regard to the conversation about the TIF districts that I had asked staff a week or so ago for information on how many TIF district creation notices actually came before the board. And last year in 2022, it was 2. In 2021, it was 1, and in 2020, it was 0. So I wanted to share that information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ashcraft?
Well, Madam Chair, I just wanted to say congratulations on your first sitting as chair. It's always interesting how the most mundane, straightforward, inconsequential agendas can take on a life of their own. So, good job.
Thank you. Commissioner Fast?
Nothing exciting.
Well, I would like to make a comment that I went out and visited the Workforce Partnership, Johnson County Workforce Partnership, and Commissioner Hanslick had told me about it, and I had been having conversations with them. And if you have not gone out there, I encourage all the commissioners to go there. This is a program that helps not only the small businesses, but also medium-sized businesses. They also help people that are trying to make a job transition, somebody that may need to have help with their resume, or just skills to go on and do an aptitude test to see where they might qualify to bettering themselves. They provide daycare, gas cards. I mean, it's just amazing. And one of the things that I want to encourage them is to talk to our housing department because of providing transit is so important for these workforce. So with those apartments going in, this could be a good case. Also, I don't know about the rest of you, but I don't know if Commissioner Myers is attending the Meadowbrook Park event.
I will be.
I purchased my tickets, and I'm excited about that event. And so they still have some VIP tickets available to help with the foundation, and I encourage you to do that. You can contact Johnson County Parks and Rec. Under the chair's comments this afternoon, we're going to have to move our committee of the whole meeting. So I need some suggestions if we want to do a cold agenda. Do we want to go through the agenda?
I'll make a suggestion and then an option if you don't
Okay.
like it. That we break for lunch until 1:30, do agenda review at 1:30, and move back the budget start at 2. So that's option 1. Another one is to skip agenda review and just move everything up half an hour.
So I'm going to ask the commission for their pleasure. Does that work?
I'd rather not skip agenda review. I prefer the first, option 1.
Correct, I agree. Commissioner Myers?
I could go with cold agenda, it doesn't matter.
I would prefer having an agenda review,
Yeah, this is not.
especially after last time we did this.
Not
And-
asking
And if I
10
would have been
million
sitting, poor Janae got, yeah. So we will do the first option. Also, Monday, June 6th is a solar public hearing at 2:00 p.m. here in the hearing room. Wednesday, June 8th at 12 o'clock is the legislative update luncheon at Embassy Suites in Olathe. I would also, the chairman wanted to send our sympathy to Scott Lambert's family. Scott recently passed away. He was a city manager at Leawood, and I know he will be greatly missed. And then also, the chairman's under the weather, so we wish him a speedy recovery. And with that, we will take a break for 30 minutes and come back. What time did you say? I apologize.
We're coming back at 1:30?
I would suggest 1:30.
Coming back at 1:30. Meeting dismissed for agenda review. Thank you. Thank you for.